On.
Good morning. This is a public hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on Wednesday, April 28th, 2021, in accordance with the provisions of the Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Chapter 272. It's being broadcast live on Channel 18 and recorded for the archives. Today's hearing is being conducted by remote video conference pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency orders prohibiting the gathering of large groups of people. Every effort has been made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. The agenda and copies of all documents for review today have been posted on the town website and can be accessed there. Double checking right now that all participants have muted themselves. Except for commission members, we ask that everybody remain muted unless you wish to speak. During the proceedings, we proceed by having questions and comments first from commission members, and then it's open for other participants to ask questions or make comments. If you have something to say, please unmute yourself, state your name, and ask to be recognized, and we will allow you to speak. The commission will be, all votes today will still be by roll call. And so that we have a record of the quorum of commission members attending today, I'll now ask each member to indicate their presence on this call. Commissioner Rawls.
Rawls here.
Delvecchio.
Present. Delvecchio present.
Thank you. Clark.
Clark present.
Latin.
Latin present.
Sullivan. Terry, you're muted. I know you're here. I see you're muted. We'll swing back.
Sullivan present. Sorry.
There you go. Unmute. That's fine. Francisconi.
Francisconi present.
Okay, thank you. Here we are all here. The hearing has now been opened. Nikki, I think we have, I didn't write it down, but we have at least one request for a continuance today.
Yes, we have one withdrawal and one continuance.
Okay, got it. The request for a continuance has been filed by 305 Main Street. So if you are here for that, it will not be heard today. And we have a request for withdrawal from 314 Morris Island Road. And I think those are the only administrative changes. So unless we missed something, Nikki, we're ready to start at the top of the agenda.
All right, first we have a request for a field change for 267 Cedar Street. Stephen J. Carter, trustee of Stephen J. Carter Revocable Trust of 1997, map 12B, parcel 20, to remove a tree, install an irrigation well, and relocate the AC condensers.
So from looking at the filing, from what they've said, this tree was damaged during the construction by the installation of the utility lines. It's a real shame. We worked hard during the application process and the approval process to save this particular tree because it was a beautiful tree. But I do understand that it is now too close to the building, heavily damaged its root systems by the utility company. It's a shame. Does anybody have questions for Nicole about this request, other than to express the fact that it's a shame?
Clark has a question.
Yes, Tom, go ahead.
We got introduced, I think, maybe 2 meetings ago to the strategy of people installing wells in order to minimize charges, as I understand it, for drinking water from the town. And I noticed the 2 field changes are for installing wells. So I think the obvious question is that why they're putting in their well?
Nicole, do you want to respond to that?
So the town has put a ban on attaching irrigation to town water. So any way to irrigate mitigation plantings now has to be through an irrigation well. David Clark, are you here to talk about why you need the irrigation well?
Susan Ledoux is here.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Hi, Susan. Go ahead.
And I also have Teresa Sprague, if you do have other questions about the tree removal and that is the case. Unfortunately, we do typically have our meters for irrigation on town water, and as of January 1st, any new construction is required, as Nicole said, to be on its own well, and so we will need that for the foundation plantings in the front of this house, and then for the temporary that's allowed for the mitigation. So that is the reason, and if allowed to remove the tree that is compromised, we thought since we were there, we would install the well in that general area, keeping all heavy equipment outside of the 100-foot line. And just reaching in to install the well and any handwork needed, trying to minimize any further disturbance to within the jurisdiction.
Is that where is this requirement coming from? Is that the water department?
It is.
Okay. So even above ground temporary irrigation must be sourced from a well?
I don't know if Teresa can respond to that, since she deals with that more than I do. I imagine that could be a hose attached to, but I don't know that they want you to do that either. Teresa, are you on the line?
I am on the line. Good morning, Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design. I am not certain on that, so I don't have an answer for that question. The amount of mitigation plantings, however, going in here on this particular property really does require something a little more robust than a hose on a spigot.
Yes, sorry, this is Sean Riley, Coastal Engineering. I have the next application, but just to speak to that, the reason why we're here, and we'll get into it for the next hearing, is the builder went to the town to hook up the temporary irrigation, and they were told that any irrigation needs to be on a well. So I think you're going to see a lot more of these.
Apparently, I mean, every mitigation project, then, I mean, if it's more than a handful of plants, is going to be, all right, we'll have to connect with the water department and find out more about it. It's a
Can
big
we
change.
clarify? Could we clarify that also? Because my understanding is that it's not just new, it's going to be existing in the next year or so. So I have one now that's hooked up to town water, and I believe I have to hook it up. I have to put in a well.
That is my understanding as well.
Okay. Within the next year is what you were told.
Correct.
The other problem, of course, is that the well drilling companies are booked solid, partly as a result of this change in the town requirements. So it's going to need some advanced planning to get this done. Do you have any idea, Susan or Teresa, how long it's going to take to get somebody to drill the well there?
I don't know, but I've offered to help our well driller with all of his applications.
Okay.
Because we have this one and we have 2 others now in the pipeline.
Okay.
So I don't know about timing.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions about this field change?
Yeah, Bob. Janet, I have a question.
Okay, 2 questions. Bob Rawls, you were first.
I just echo, I really think we should reach out to the water department and make sure they understand the implications of this requirement for all these projects that require temporary mitigation or temporary irrigation and mitigation. And of course, since they're all natives, after 3 years, they shouldn't need any water. So it just seems sort of counterproductive, almost silly. And I hope that they can consider some sort of exception for these mitigation projects. The other comment and question I had was, we're replacing a 24-inch caliper tree with a 2-inch sapling. And I understand the reasoning for the tree coming out. You know, it's also leaning toward the house pretty well. Just wondering whether or not it'd be possible to plant more than one, a couple of trees perhaps, because this is going to take 25 years for the ecological value of that tree to come back with a sapling.
Teresa, can you address that, because it's your mitigation plan, and I know we were tight trying to get everything that needed to be in there. So
Yeah, Bob, I apologize. Would you repeat the question?
The question is whether or not it would be possible to plant more than one replacement tree for the 24-inch caliper tree that's coming out, since it'll take so long for the one tree that's being planted to provide the same ecological services as that large tree.
Yes, I understand the questions now. So the area that's the mitigation area is being planted pretty intensely, and obviously the areas directly around the house. We're proposing to plant this oak tree in the same approximate location as the one being removed. So we could certainly shoehorn in another tree. We would not be able to fit another tree in the area where the tree is being removed. But we could certainly put another tree in the mitigation planting area.
All right, well, that'd be good if you think it'll fit. And yeah, that was actually another question I had, was where the tree was going, because on the map I couldn't quite tell, but it's in the same general area, so that's good. Okay, those are my questions.
Thank you. Bob Delvecchio?
No, Bob reviewed the same question I had, so we're all set.
Okay. All right, is there a motion then to approve the field change request for 267 Cedar Street?
Bob Rawls moved to approve the field change request.
Clark, second.
All right, roll call vote for the field change request for 267 Cedar. Commissioner Rawls?
Aye.
Delvecchio?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Latin? You're muted, Karen. Where are you? You're still muted. You're still muted. All right, we just come back to her. Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay. She's not responding. Maybe she had to step away. So we have one, and I vote aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, and 1 not responding. So it's either way, it's approved. Thank you. Okay.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay, Nikki, moving on.
Sorry, my session got dropped. This is Karen Latin.
Ah, okay. Gosh.
So I'm back on now. For some reason,
Okay.
it just suddenly died.
It happens.
Yep, sorry.
I always blame Comcast, so.
But I say aye. Aye.
Okay. All right, Nicole.
All right, next we have 34 Hallway Street, 34 Chatham Village Trust, map 17C, parcel 16A. Again, this is a request for field change for installation of an irrigation well.
For the record, Sean Riley, Coastal Engineering, representing the applicant. The well is to be located between the house and the street. Access is from the street. And again, it's for the, we have a significant amount of mitigation plantings that we need to maintain for the first 3 years. So essentially the same request.
Okay.
With that, I'll open up any questions.
Any questions? I think we covered it from the last time. All right, is there a motion to approve the field change request for 34 Hallway Street?
Motion to approve the request for the field change request.
Clark, second.
Roll call vote for the field change request. Commissioner Rawls?
Aye.
Delvecchio?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Latin?
Aye.
Sullivan?
Aye.
I vote aye. That's unanimous, 6-6. All right, thank you, Sean. That's approved.
Thank you.
All right, we will definitely have a conversation with the water department about what the requirements are. All right, Nicole, we're ready to go to the RDAs.
All right, so Hardings Beach Road, Town of Chatham, map 8A, parcel 2C, temporary burial and storage of dredge pipe on beach. And Ted Keon is here to speak on that.
Okay.
Yes, good morning. Ted Keon, Coastal Resource Director for Chatham.
Morning.
Nicole, did you want to put the pictures up, or do you want me to share, or Janet, do you even want me to put the pictures up?
Sure, I think we've seen them, but I think others who are watching would appreciate seeing what this proposal.
Yes, I'm working on it right now.
Okay.
All right, can you see it?
Sort of. Not, well, can you go to the first one?
This one?
Figure
Yeah.
1, that's the first.
You,
Can you rotate it?
everyone put their laptops on the side.
Oh, my
Um,
laptop. Sorry.
That's okay.
That's okay, we can see.
Yep.
Ted,
right,
if you want to
so-
share, feel free. I'll exit out.
Well, I mean, I think this will work. Oh, well, okay.
I can't see what I'm sharing, so it's hard for me to.
Understood.
Okay,
Does that work?
yep,
Okay. So we did have a site visit last week. I believe 4 commission members were able to attend. So for those that weren't there, I'll just kind of rehash what the discussion was. A little bit of background. The town has been very active, as I'm sure everyone is aware, with dredging at Stage Harbor, given the very substantial changes that are occurring over there and the infilling of the channel, which has required repeated dredging over the last couple of years, and we fully anticipate, into the near future, unfortunately. We dredged last year with a private contractor, and they pumped the material to Hardings Beach, and they focused on both of the parking lot areas where the primary, recreational activity occurs. As you see in this picture, there's a very substantial indent, if you will, between the 2 beaches because we just didn't have enough material, to progress through that area. Looking ahead to this current year, the town knew that we were going to be dredging again. The county was able to put us in the schedule. They weren't able to last year. But one of our target sites was the Cockle Cove area, which was very severely depleted in material as well. In order to get the material to Cockle Cove, which is a very long distance, we had to supplement the county's inventory of dredge pipe with an additional 3,000 linear feet, with the full intention that the town would maintain that pipe in the town and provide it to the county for future mobilization as needed and as necessary. Initially, we had, preference to put it in a burial portion of the beach, but frankly, we just didn't have a good site at the time. And we then looked for a number of different options of where to store the pipe once the project was done. So the second picture, we had pretty much gotten much of Cockle Cove filled, but the production was relatively slow because of the very long distance. And we were running out of kind of the window of when we were allowed to do the dredging. So since Cockle Cove was in pretty good shape, we decided to put the remainder of the material in the area that we didn't do last year, which is the area between the 2 parking lots as shown. So we placed about 14,000 yards or so in this area and really improved this midsection, much to the delight, frankly, of the Park and Rec department, who really wants to use this area as part of the overall recreational beach area. So now that we have restored this beach, we now have an opportunity to put the pipe, under the sand and basically temporarily store it in a manner that's sort of out of sight, out of mind, and out of, resource issues. Doesn't impact whatsoever the performance of the beach. The beach is sufficiently wide now, so the beach functions will be maintained. There's no vegetation, et cetera. Based on this picture, there was one initial kind of sort of the preferred at the time before we had done the beach project. We were planning to perhaps put it up in the parking lot in this corner, but that became very problematic to secure the pipe from both, safety reasons, kids climbing on it and so forth. And then the Park and Rec Commission who had reluctantly agreed, if that was the only option, to put it there, really wanted to be screened with fencing for aesthetics as well as safety reasons. And that became another problematic issue. I had a fencing contractor come and look at the site, and he basically, didn't want to do the project because he just didn't know how he would secure an appropriate temporary fence, since it would have to come down in the wind area that, or wind loads that we get here, and the safety issues, et cetera. So once the beach was completed, it became quite obvious that this would be a very viable place to put the pump, or put the pipe, under the sand. Again, as I say, it would be well out of, the vegetation zone, and well up on the beach, so that the beach would still, function as normal with no impacts whatsoever. As I indicated in the RDA, this has been done for several years in other locations on the Cape. Dennis, for repeated dredging at Sassuat Harbor, does it in this manner, and Pamet has been doing it for many years associated with dredging up there. And then just this picture, give you a representation. The blue line was approximately what the beach looked like prior to the project. The red line being the beach after the nourishment. You can see a very substantial increase on the active portion of the beach, and the displacement seaward of both the high and low water line. So the idea is to have an excavator create a trench along the upper portion, very straightforward process. We would take the 3,000 feet and leave it in 600-foot sections. Essentially, the pipes are now bolted together of 300-foot lengths each. So we have 10 sections, and then we basically turn it into 5 sections of 600 feet, since we have plenty of beach length to do it. So that is the proposal. Obviously, the entirety of Harding's Beach is under an existing order of conditions to allow nourishment. With very active with when these projects are done with equipment on the beach in order to create the beach, frankly. But once the project's done and it's all cleaned up, the beach looks like a beach. So that is our request. If we could place the pump, or I keep calling pump because we pumped it here, into the pipes, into the trench. Right now, the pipe is being handled literally as we speak for relocation over to Chatham Harbor. And once that project is completed, our section will be coming back and be available for the storage, which hopefully will be in the mid or latter part of May. Given the time of season, obviously the recreational concerns are legitimate, and we really want to get rid of the pipe, as soon as possible. The only other really viable option we would have is to cut the pipe back up into its initial 50-foot sections, which is how it's delivered to the site, and then load it up on trucks, take it up presumably to the water treatment plant, store it, and then next year, when we would be doing another project of this nature, putting it all back together. That's not an easy operation, and it's not an inexpensive operation. We're estimating that would annually add approximately $20,000 to $25,000 or so per episode in order to get the equipment, the expertise, the fusion machines, and trucking back and forth. So if we can, avoid that by all means, that would be obviously our preference. And with that, I'm back and
Okay,
happy to
thank
answer
you.
questions.
Thank you. Oh, feedback. I just have a quick question about the dimensions. So the trench is 600 feet long. What is the bottom depth? How down do you dig? And then how far above the placement of the top of the pipes would the surface be?
That's going to be somewhat of a field call. The diagram I showed had the pipes, 3 on the bottom, 2 on top. It may ultimately be preferred to just lay them 5 side by side. We've still got plenty of room. I'd be working with the excavator operator as well as our dredge supervisor from the county who has done this and kind of play it by ear, if you will, on what we feel is the best method to get it in there. At a minimum, we would be having at least probably 3 feet of cover over the pipe.
3 feet. And how far seaward from the bottom of the vegetated dune there would the trench be located?
Probably about 10 feet or so. Well, again, well beyond the toe.
Okay, a minimum of 10 feet. You've got to figure out, yeah, you've got some, okay. Other questions for Ted? I don't think we need to go in order here. If anybody has questions, feel free to.
I have a couple of questions, Jan.
Sure, go ahead, Bob.
Ted, you mentioned that it would be monitored, the area, just to make sure that the pipes didn't expose themselves. How is there going to be like a set schedule so that someone actually physically goes over there and make sure that those pipes don't become visible?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll obviously be going down somewhat regularly. I have no doubt. If anything were exposed, we'd hear about it very quickly. So, I mean, short answer is yes. What that schedule would be, I'm not sure. I don't think, the changes out there are so rapid that, we'd need to go down on a weekly basis or anything of that nature. If we had a storm event, absolutely, I would go down to make sure that things, were okay. And if, and this is a very, I think, unlikely if it really became obvious that it just simply, for whatever reason, wasn't working, then our plan B would be to pull the pipes out of the pit before they got, displaced, if you will, and go back to our, undesirable method of cutting them up and shipping them off site. Unless there were an opportunity, given the time of year, that we could put the pipe on the parking lot if it were out of the way from the normal seasonal summer usage, which I really wouldn't expect us to do it during that season. It would probably, if it happened, and I doubt it, during the winter time, and perhaps we could just store it on the beach in preparation for the next round of dredging.
Okay, and my second question is, will you be burying some detection device so you'll be able to find out exactly where they are once fall comes?
I mean, short answer, no. I don't see that as an issue. We will mark, if you will, with a stake or something on the dune line of where the beginning of the pipe is. We'll know where it is. It's not going anywhere, obviously. It'll be very easy to find, the next season. I don't see that as an issue at all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions?
Bob Rawls, I don't have questions. I think it's a sensible solution with no permanent impact to the resource. I think at the onsite, we talked about plovers, and Ted indicated he would ensure that he'd have plover monitors if it turns out that was necessary.
Thank you, Bob. I forgot to mention that. We have been monitoring because we're required to as part of our existing permit. If we still have pipe or equipment on the beach, we are required to have periodic monitoring. Our senior bird monitor has been going out regularly recently. She was out today since the county is out there working on the pipe to get it ready for transport. And she has not seen any birds for a number of weeks in this area as normal. And they have set up again. The bird nesting and activity has been well to the east in the more kind of secluded areas for, I think, obvious reasons. They'd rather be up there than where all the action is.
Right. And the other thing we discussed is that this RDA would have a limited time duration, so that your plan is to come back, if it's successful, to augment the future dredging master plan to include this as a storage area for the pipes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we would, in the next, year plus, we're going to be getting ready to, renew our comprehensive dredging permit, because the 10-year window is coming to close. And as part of that, we would incorporate into that requests the opportunity to, store it on site for repeated projects.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Any other questions? So what I've written down here, Ted, is that what the conditions that would be added to this are the requirement to monitor both for adequate coverage, as well as something we haven't brought up yet, but that this should not cause any change in the existing slope of the beach.
Correct.
So that would be part of the monitoring as well as any signs of presence of plovers. It'll be removed when at the end of the season. Is there a date or removal?
Well, just back to the plover issue. The plover issue would only be a concern or an issue at all during either removal or burial. Removal would not presumably be an issue because we would be removing the pipe well before the plover season, initiates.
Right.
And, burying, yes, we would be looking to make sure there was no activity in the area, prior to the burial. But once they're in the ground, the
it
plover
shouldn't make any difference.
wouldn't have any idea it's there.
Okay. And this is, if it's successful, you'll add it to the upcoming new comprehensive dredge permit as a
That's correct.
part of that. Okay. Nicole, do you have anything else?
Nope, you covered all my conditions. I recommend a -2 determination. That work is in the resource area, but will not negatively impact it.
Okay. Is there a motion then for a -2 determination for this proposal?
Rawls move for a -2 RDA for this.
Clark, second.
All right, roll call vote. Commissioner Rawls,
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Latin,
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That's unanimous. That's approved. Or negative determination 2 is issued.
Understood.
Thank you.
Very much, folks.
Thank you. Thank you. Good
All right,
solution to that problem. Okay, next one, Nikki.
7 Champlain Road, a request for determination of applicability, Stage Harbor Enterprises LLC, map 13A, parcel 33-12, installation of a seasonal picket fence within a gravel driveway.
Good morning, David Clark here on behalf of Sage Harbor Enterprises. I would think this is a very straightforward project. In the narrative, I did outline the need for this fence. Being a sailing school with dozens of kids there during the summer months, the club wants to have a barrier to keep the two uses separate. We have an industrial use next door and an educational use on our side. The fence would go in sometime during June in the spring, and classes usually end the end of August, so the fence would come out after August. And being removable if there was a coastal storm in the forecast, the fence could easily be removed, as well as all the other sailing items that would be on the beach. So there would be mobilization in the event of a storm to remove other stuff, and the fence is something easily removable. No further alteration of the resource area is proposed. So we feel that this is approvable under an RDA.
All right. Thank you. So, David, as I read the photograph that is submitted, are these representative of the permanent supports that are proposed to?
No, that's just the
location of the fence?
The location of the fence. So it's basically along the town's retaining wall.
Okay, so it's going to go right up against that wall. Yes. What will it be sitting on some sort of support or dug into the ground?
I anticipate that it will be some type of galvanized pipe installed right adjacent to the wall that would be somewhat flush to grade, certainly not higher than the wall, and the fence post could either slide into it or over it, one of the two.
Okay, that makes sense. So nothing, I was looking at this going, are they going to be sticking up like that? Okay. And the fence is to be, the material for the fence, is it?
I believe it's plastic.
Plastic, okay, so a white plastic picket fence. Gotcha. Okay, questions?
Rawls, I was just wondering how tall the fence is.
I believe it's 4 feet.
Okay. And the slats are your slats, and there's a distance between the slats of some.
Yeah, probably a couple of 3 inches or something like that. I mean, there's a vertical barrier now for the wildlife because of the retaining wall. And it's not really habitat for large wildlife anyways, because we've got the commercial use next door.
Okay, no questions.
Do you need zoning approval for this?
Yes, we do. It's a fence in the floodplain. So I think Bill Riley is taking that to ZBA next month sometime.
Okay.
It is scheduled for May 13th for zoning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Nicole, is this, what is the proper?
Because it's in the flood zone, which is the resource area, it would be a -2 as well. And I just had one quick question. I'm sorry if I missed it when you were talking. When is the fence going in and out each year?
It's only during the months they're actually the sailing school is open. So it basically I anticipate it going in mid-June, maybe 1st of June, and no reason to have it there past Labor Day. So June, July, and August.
I'll probably put Memorial Day to Labor Day in the condition.
Yep. That should be fine.
Okay. All right, that's all I had.
All right, is there a motion then for a -2 determination for 7 Champlain Road?
Rawls, move for a -2 determination for the fence.
Clark, second.
Okay, roll call vote. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Latin.
Aye.
Sullivan. He said aye. I saw
Aye.
I got the hand signal. I vote aye as well. That's unanimous. -2 determination is issued. Thank you. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
All right. All right, moving on, Nicole.
Next, we have a request for an amended order of conditions. This is the first step of the request. 24 Windmill Lane, Jeffrey and Carrie Chandler, map 16A, parcel H2, SE 10-3283. This is to extend a retaining wall, add a rent station, add stairs and walkway.
Good morning, Teresa Sprague with Blue Flex Design here on behalf of Jeffrey and Carrie Chandler. We've submitted this first phase of the request to amend the existing order of conditions. There is currently a retaining wall approved along the edge of the driveway on the north side of the dwelling that wraps around the corner along Windmill Lane. We provided a section. The area really needs a retaining wall to run the whole length of Windmill Lane in order to provide proper stability for the leach field, which is in the front yard. The area it's fairly steep, sloping right down to Windmill Lane, and it will just prevent soil from eroding down into the street. Right now, the soil is eroding right down into Windmill Lane, which is really narrow roadway. In addition to that, we're requesting permission to come before you with a full request for an amended order of conditions to add a set of stairs and a walkway from the front door that leads down over that retaining wall so they have access from their driveway to the front door. And then finally, they are proposing a rinse station with a stepping stone walkway for the structure. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about this first phase.
Okay, I'll remind everybody, this is a phase 1 request, so the question in front of us is limited to, at this point, whether this proposal falls within the scope of the originally permitted project, so as to qualify for an amendment. I do have questions about the walkway, the rinse station, the stepping stones, but I think those are better held until we get to phase 2. I appreciate that you submitted all of the materials to but they have the effect of raising questions, but that are beyond the scope of this hearing at this point. So I'll hold off on asking any of that. But are any other questions about the scope of this project and its qualification as an amendment?
Clark here.
Yes, Tom.
I had a question that is not directly applicable to what you were discussing, but on the plan, they show a rollout boardwalk, and I was wondering what that was.
That was previously approved under the original order of conditions to provide access. There's a pathway that leads from the backyard on the east side of the house out to the coastal dune. And that was previously approved. It has not been installed, and I'm not sure that it will be installed at this point. We've done the invasive species management portion of the project. And there seems to be easy foot access without the need for a boardwalk. However, it was previously approved.
Okay, I was just curious about the technology, actually. I mean, I have an image of a bunch of slats held together by wire in and you literally unroll it. Is that kind of what you're?
Yep, that's exactly what it is. Yep. And then it's easy to roll back up and store in the off season.
Right. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Is there then a motion to approve this request for an amendment?
Rawls, motion to approve the phase 1 request here for this amendment.
Is there a second?
Clark, second.
Thank you. Roll call vote to approve this request for an amendment, phase 1, with Commissioner Walls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Latin.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye. Well, that's unanimous. That is approved. We'll see you at phase 2. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Nicole, ready to move on.
All right, now we are moving on to the notices of intent. The first one is 305 Main Street, Timothy C. Emerson Revocable Trust, CO Peter Emerson, Susan Gordon, trustees, map 16C, parcel 33, SC 10-3393, demolition of a cottage, construction of a new cottage, construction of a building addition to a single family home. The applicant has requested a continuance to May 26, 2021, due to having issues with the historic board.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the continuance?
Rawls, so moved.
Clark, second.
All right, roll call vote to approve the continuance of 305 Main Street. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Latin.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That's unanimous. Hopefully we'll get this one wrapped up on May 26th. That would be nice. All right.
All right, now we have
Long time, folks. It's been out there for over a year. One got to come to an end. All right.
That's why I was laughing.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have 8 Scallop Terrace for Catherine and James Caruso, map 16A, parcel H14G, SE 10-3488, raising of an existing dwelling and construction of a new dwelling meeting FEMA NFIP standards and building code.
Good morning. For the record, Glenn Eldridge. When we were last before you, there were 2 requests. You wanted a planting list. We've provided that. And we've also secured permission from the abutter so that the entire parking area will be removed and replaced with shell. Plans were submitted last week and we're ready to close this one.
All right, thank you. Thank you for submitting those. It was good news on the driveway. And does anyone have questions on what has been submitted, the planting list and the changes to the driveway material? And I think we are ready then for a motion to continue 8 Scallop Terrace to the work session on May 5th.
Rawls, move to continue to the work session on May 5th.
Clark, second.
Thank you. Roll call vote for 8 Scallop Terrace. Commissioner Rawls,
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Latin. You're muted, Karen.
Aye.
Aye. Sullivan,
Aye.
and I vote aye. That's approved unanimously. We'll get a draft order of conditions ready for the work session on May the 5th.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next up is 201 Old Harbor Road, Scott Brennan Properties LLC. Brenna C. Melvin is the owner and Scott Brennan is the applicant. Map 15F, parcel 62A, SE 10-3458, construction of a garage cottage, removal of an existing cottage, and relocation of shed. And I'm not sure who's here to present on that one.
Hi, this is Scott Brennan,
Good morning, Mr. Brennan.
and I'm here with Brenna Melvin as well.
Good morning.
Okay, good morning. Let me pull up.
Apparently video isn't supported in my browser, so.
That's okay. We've got it ready here to go, so hang on one second.
Okay.
All right.
So the narrative that we submitted is pretty self-explanatory. First of all, let me apologize for having to continue this so many times to get where we are. But the narrative kind of breaks it down in a few different parts. There's an existing cottage and workshop in the back area. What we'd like to do is expand on the existing cottage to the existing patio area off to the left side there. And then we'd like to stretch the cottage 10 feet out to the right-hand side in order to make this space more usable. Further in the back, there's that workshop area, which doesn't have any, we've already been to historic, it doesn't have any historic significance. However, it's got some really nice characteristics that we'd like to try and restore, the double windows, that type of thing. So we'd like to put that up on blocks, build a proper floor underneath there, and use that as a workshop. Our original plan was to have a big building in the back, but it was just taking up too much space. We don't have any basement storage in the house. The house is approximately 200 to 250 years old. So we're trying to get some storage on the property as well. So we're proposing a garage up in the front right-hand corner there. So we'll be able to have some garage space as well as storage up above. And the house, the cottage, everything needs a lot of work. We'll be maintaining, or we'll be updating siding, doors, and windows on the house. We'll be, updating the existing cottage and workshop, and basically, we're going to have to do a little bit of mitigation because the part of the cottage is in the 50-foot buffer. So we're proposing to do our mitigation behind the proposed garage up toward the wetlands, or to the edge of the wetlands. And you can see the square footages on the provided narrative of the existing properties and the proposed properties. So without being too long-winded, I'd like to open it up to any questions.
All right, thank you. Bob Rawls, let's start with you. Do you have questions for?
Yeah, this project has gone through some changes since we first saw it. So the thing that struck me, I mean, there's the thing that I focus on is the mitigation plan. And when I looked at it again yesterday, and the whole area or behind where the garage is proposed is English ivy.
Yes.
And they're climbing up. It's climbing up the trees, covering the trees, pulling down trees when you get closer to the wetland part. And I don't see any overt reference in the mitigation plan to doing anything with that. Just wondering if that is part of your plan.
I would love to have that part of the plan. I'm trying to, without going too far in doing too much without getting prior approval, there are some trees. There's a beautiful spruce there, nice, really nice shape. It's got a ton of that ivy growing up there. We'd like to, clip that. We'd love to cut. And if you want to put it in the order of conditions, I'm more than happy to agree to that. We'd love to cut the ivy from the trees, the base of the trees, in order to kill it, in order to let the trees regrow. There are a couple other trees that are tipped over. They're in rough shape. They've got massive vines growing up there, but we would be willing to agree to your recommendations as far as what ivies we can and can't touch in that area.
Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you should be clipping all the English ivy whenever you see it.
Yay.
And I don't...
we would welcome that. I don't know if you're aware, but prior to our ownership, the English ivy actually covered the structures back there, and so we've been trying to open them up. So we welcome.
It's bad stuff, and there's really no redeeming value to it whatsoever, in my view. Again, we can let everybody else opine about it, but as far as I could, and I'm not able to tell how many different types of vines are there, but it looked to me like it was predominantly English ivy. I guess Bob Delvecchio, maybe he could give an opinion about that. So, okay, good. I just think that should be part of this whole project. I do remember that originally the project had mitigation down near the wetland area, but now I see nothing proposed for there. Is that correct?
That is correct. We went through a different surveyor who was making one recommendation. We've got a new surveyor who I was hoping to have on the call today, but actually he's got jury duty, so he won't be on the call today. So we've decided to move the mitigation area over where we think it makes more impact as opposed to just the open area behind the cottage and workshop. So I think it makes more mitigation, and it puts more of a buffer between the wetlands and the grassy area that's out back.
Yeah, the whole area by the wetland is pretty degraded itself, but I understand how you need to focus on something.
Yeah.
I don't see a, see, I'm trying to look at my notes. I think I have the wrong house. Hold on, I'm sorry, just hold on, let me get to the right notes. On this plan, I don't see, oh yeah, this is the one where the planning plan proposes a root stimulant being applied. That is something I don't recall seeing before, and I think we would need to know what that is, because it's normally not something that would be advisable, I think, in a resource area.
Okay, we can, let's see, that's something that the mitigation expert put in, and if there's concern, or if you need clarity about that, we can definitely get you clarity about that.
Yeah, I think some clarity would be good on a couple of things there. It's, for example, they're proposing mulching with wood chips, which is also for the normal restoration projects and mitigation projects that we see. We don't see this. There are some unusual aspects to it, and I also don't see, I think, any narrative about what is the plan for care of the plants for the 3-year period. So just some details I think they're a little lacking in the mitigation plan. But other than that, I have no other issues with the project other than that English ivy.
I think his idea for the wood chip was to basically use it as a mulch to try and kill the creeping ivy that's on the ground.
Yeah.
my thoughts with respect to the wood chips.
Yeah, I'm not sure how effective that would be. I think the way you get rid of it is to get rid of it. But I'm not an expert in this. I don't know what I don't know what the experience of your landscaper is in this sort of ecological mitigation and restoration area is.
George Riley has done a bunch of projects in the Chatham area, and he's the one who came up with the plan. So I can reach out to him for some
Okay.
detail.
No further questions.
Okay, thank you. Bob Delvecchio.
Yeah, I echo Bob's sentiment about the ivy. The more you can get rid of that English ivy, it's aggressive. The more you can get rid of it, the better.
And what's the best way to do that, Bob? Is it just by continuing to keep it cut back each time it tries to reassert itself without putting on any kind of chemical treatment?
Right. Maybe even put a physical border or edging, and just keep it trimmed to that point. Just to try to maintain it. It requires, more than one pruning per growing season. So probably 2 or 3 prunings, trimmings, along the base.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're happy to do that.
Okay.
Yes, and also I had a question about the garage, the proposed garage. Is there a way to move that out of the 50, out of the no disturb zone? There's a corner of it in the no disturb zone.
We've tried to move it out of the no disturb zone. However, it makes the garage dimensions. I think that 24-foot wide would go down to about, I think he said 18 feet wide in order to get it out of the no disturb zone. So we hemmed and hawed with that, and we're asking for forgiveness and doing a little extra mitigation because we are in the no disturb zone. But with the 25-foot setback from the street and the 15 setback from the abutters, it would be a really tight fit.
You can move it south.
If we move it south, then it starts to, no. Yeah, moving it south doesn't bring it far enough out, and now that takes up the whole driveway area.
Well, I'd like to see some change there if we can. I mean, it's not a lot in the no disturb zone right now. So if you reduce some of the dimensions and maybe shift it a little bit, I'd like to see that out of the no disturb zone. I don't think there's a lot in the zone, correct? It's only like maybe 8 feet or so.
It's very minimal.
5 feet. Yeah.
Yeah, the square footage is approximately 8, kind of a triangle, 8 by, where's the 50?
It's the large dashed line. It's hard, a little bit hard to.
Yeah, it's not a lot. It's 8 feet by, maybe if the whole thing is 28, it's maybe 8 by 10, 80 square feet, maybe.
Right.
And then we're doing 2 times mitigation for that, and plus additional mitigation for the whole thing. So I think we're pretty, I realize it's tight, but.
Okay, and also the pitch pines, the 2 pitch pines that will be removed because of safety reasons. Is there any way to save one of them?
Well, they are severely leaning toward the project. And if you look at the base of them, it seems as though, and I'm not an expert at it, but I think that maybe like a pitch pine borer or something in there. And then also our insurance company has come out and said, those are leaning toward your sheds. We're trying to insure the sheds. They're severely leaning toward it. So we'd like to remove them. We're more than happy to plant a whole bunch more trees in that back area if there's a requirement, but I think
Okay.
those are really in rough shape to try and save.
Okay, I understand. Okay. Yeah, aside from the garage and the no disturb zone, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Tom, questions or comments?
Yeah, couple. On the, first off, on the ivy behind the area where the garage is proposed, I don't know what kind of trimming they were thinking of, but my experience has been that once ivy gets to that point, it actually is sending roots into the tree. And the only way to get rid of it, unfortunately, is chemically. You could hand wipe some trichlor on the leaves. You'll have to do it repeatedly, but that's about the only way you're going to get it. You're going to kill it from because of the roots that it is already sent into the tree, which is how it's drawing its nutrients. You just slicing it off at ground level won't do any good by itself. At least that's my experience. The other problem I have with the site is that the workshop and the cottage that they're discussing are going to be constructed within the no disturb zone. And for that reason, I would be opposed to it. There's plenty of room behind the house. They could pull them out. I don't really view the proposals for the workshop and the cottage as being as innocuous as they sound. It looks to me like what they're setting up basically is another, at least one and possibly two additional bedroom, cottage, workshop combinations. So with that kind of elaborateness, I think they should pull them out of the no disturb zone, which they're in. At least according to you look at the stakes out on the site, it's clear that they're within the no disturb area.
Yeah, it runs right through the cottage and through the front of the shed along here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they are existing structures back there. If we have the approval to remove the two pitch pines, we would be able to slide the workshop forward without doing any damage to, the no disturb zone. So I'd definitely be willing to work with you on pulling the workshop out of the no disturb zone. I like the idea of the workshop because it kind of gives us a buffer between the backyard and the neighbor's property in behind, which seems to have a lot going on back there. So, because the majority of that workshop is in the no disturb zone.
And the proposed additions are outside of the no disturb zone.
He's getting new time.
Yep, okay.
Just because, I mean, you're leaving the cottage, or let's see, what do you call it? Cottage, yes. You're leaving the cottage though within the no disturb zone and you're adding to it. So the fact that you say, well, that's technically outside the no disturb area, I'm sorry, that's not an argument that I particularly find persuasive at all. it's all one structure, it's all one building as you're proposing it. It's portion of it's going to be in the no disturb zone. It's not that hard to pull it out a little bit further, so you're not doing that.
So basically cutting off the back of that.
Well,
And-
cutting off or sliding it forward, could you not slide it so that the back extension is not over that line?
I know we have to be away from our leaching field that's in the middle of the yard. So I don't know what the requirements are for being away from the leaching field. What we're trying to do with that cottage is we've got 5-bedroom septic. We've got 3 bedrooms in the house, and then 2 are for the cottage, and it's all inspected and tied into the existing septic. So I hate to move the whole structure. We could try and reconfigure the structure, so instead of basically cut the back of the cottage off that's in the 50-foot buffer and shift that equivalent amount of square footage outside of the buffer, basically over toward the left of the brick patio, if that's something you'd be agreeable to. I mean,
that would be an improvement.
Then can we leave the existing workshop where it is, or do you want that out as well?
I personally, speaking only personally, I would want that out also.
Okay.
Can I ask a question here to jump in,
Yes.
just to follow up on what Tom was saying? When you say cottage and workshop to be rebuilt, what exactly does that mean? Are they going to be demolished and rebuilt from the ground up, or is it more of a renovation of the existing structure?
I would love to renovate the existing structure, but if we get into it and it's too far gone, then we'll have to tear it down and remove it. Which I think in the narrative, he states in the narrative that it will be removed and rebuilt.
Okay.
What we are doing with it is, because I'm trying to not do too much damage in that area, we're not building it on a 4-foot frost wall foundation with the whole crawl space underneath and removing all that soil and everything back there. What we are going to do is we're going to build it on piers. So we'll basically just have 4-foot deep piers in that area, and not have to do a big major excavation back there, which means piling up soil and all that kind of thing. So to try and minimize the area, the damage back there. The workshop, what we were trying to do with the workshop is to just lift it up on blocks, because we have no storage in the existing house or anywhere right now. I've got tools stored in there, and we've got a whole bunch of storage in there. So it's nice to have it now while we're doing this project. But then if the workshop has to go away in the future or get pulled out of there in the future, I don't have a problem with that. I just like the idea that I have some storage now prior to the garage being built, prior to the cottage being finished.
Okay. All right, sorry about that, Tom, jumped in there on your question.
Oh, no, that's, I think he is making a reasonable proposal that, I don't mind sequencing things. And if he needs it to complete the work on the other side, but it will ultimately be moved, that's fine with me.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Karen, do you have questions or comments?
I actually totally agree with Tom. I would like to very much see that shed out of the 50 and also the cottage. And since you're adding to the cottage, you're not taking that much off of the cottage in the back. So if you don't need that extra space, you'd be fine just taking off that part that's in the 50-foot. I would like to see everything out of the 50.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Terry, questions or comments?
Unmuted. I don't have any questions. I do know Scott and Brenna, and I'm new to this, and it's got some history, so I will defer to what the group decides.
Okay. All right, Nicole.
No, most of my stuff was covered. I agree with, if everything's being rebuilt, try and get it, or especially the new garage, try and get everything out of the 50. Show, your best effort to do that. And then, so I think we're just looking for a more extensive mitigation narrative regarding an English ivy plan, who's doing the landscaping, the root stimulant issue, and a revised plan showing some reconfiguration of the proposed buildings.
Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, so Nicole just summarized where we land at the end of this hearing, and the things that we are asking you to go back to your engineer and have a conversation about what can be done about moving the workshop and the cottage out of the no disturb zone. And I understand about the garage. I will tell you that if that portion of the garage remains in the no disturb zone, then you need to include in your application a request for a variance. You phrased it as you were requesting forgiveness, same idea, but in the way that we operate, that forgiveness is in the form of a variance, which requires that you make your best case for why it can't be moved. I hear you about the constraints on the roadway and in the abutting property, but that needs to be part of the application. And Nicole also referenced the request that we have given for more narrative on the mitigation, an explanation or a removal of the proposal for a root stimulant, the qualifications of the mitigation restoration company or person who's going to be doing that, explanation for how the ivy is going to come off. Tom noted that perhaps you can't just cut it. I'm asking you to take a look at that issue and figure out the best way to remove that ivy. And that's it.
A couple of the issues with respect to doing the work. I'm a fully licensed contractor and construction supervisor, so most of the work will be done by us, the homeowners.
Okay.
As far as the root stimulant, I don't have a problem removing that from the plan because I'm not a fan of using a lot of chemicals to do things, especially in the wetlands area. So I'm not familiar with the chemical that the gentleman mentioned about putting on the ivy while it's creeping up. I'll have to do a little bit of research on that in order to find that out. But from all of the folks that I've talked to, cutting it off, letting it die, and then once it's dead, pulling it off of the tree seems to basically give the tree the best chance of survival from the research that I've done. What else was the question? Oh, as far as the forgiveness.
Variance.
Variance. I thought that in our narrative, it said that we are requesting a variance. So is it, where was that?
Guys, if I missed that.
Bear with me. Yes, page 2. Second paragraph down, portions are in the existing. It's necessary to request a variance to the Chatham Conservation Commission. Regulations, section 4.03 variances. They're approximately, and I can, 297, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So,
But I would ask that you take a look at what that says, because it lays out the requirements for a variance. It's not enough to say we request one. You have to make the case that there's no feasible alternative. There's a couple of specific requirements that need to go into a variance request. It should be added to your narrative.
okay. I will ask our surveyor to look into that.
Yeah, it's pretty clearly spelled out.
Is that on the town website?
If I may note, look at sub 2 and sub 3 of that section.
Good advice.
Oh, you know what? That's the one that's missing from the website, Janet.
That's why we missed it.
Okay.
I just opened up my packet and took a look, and that's the page that is missing. So we need to provide that to
Get you a copy of the provision. Okay.
Yeah, they still haven't corrected it. Maybe we ought to ask the town to add that.
Again, we've asked. We'll ask again. Okay. In the meantime, we will get you a copy of that. Make sure you have it to give to your surveyor so they can match the requirements.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. So with all of that, the next hearing date is May the 12th, which would mean that you would need to get us everything we just talked about by May the 7th at the latest. Is that doable?
Let me look at the calendar.
It's a week from next, it's 10 days from now, essentially.
We need to get you more information 10 days from now.
Yep. Or we could push it out to May 26th and give you 2.5 weeks to do it. Up to
No, I don't want to push it out anymore. We started this in August of last year, so.
It's a long, we're getting there. It's a long process.
Okay, so just to clarify, if we take the equivalent square footage out of the cottage and shift it over toward the brick patio side, that gets that out of the 50-foot. The workshop, can we keep it where it is, put it on blocks, fix the floor, and then when we're done with the garage, pull that out of the 50 then, or do we have to have it out all at the same time?
You can sequence this any way you want. It would all be permitted by a single permit.
Okay.
To put it up and then build the garage, and at the end of the project, do the move, that's fine.
Okay. And then the garage, we will try and shorten up the width of the garage to try and get it. It's still going to be, I think the dimension he said was 18 feet. We can probably cut a couple feet off of the width of the garage in order to get it pretty close to out of that area.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll modify that, those three things, the plan, and
I just want to get clarity on the English ivy. We need to have a plan around that, but do you want us to include the commentary about the wiping of the leaves with the, I don't know what that.
So I want you to include as part of your proposal, the removal of the ivy.
Yep.
And whatever method you determine makes the most sense for this location and this situation, to propose that.
Okay.
And then I have one additional question, then I promise I will be quiet. There seems to be a lot of vines growing from the wetlands over into the solid, the not wetland, into the 50-foot buffer. Is there anything that can be done about that, or do we just let them creep and let them grow in over the next how many ever years?
Do you know what they are? Do you know what the species is?
Well, there's this creeping ivy. They seem to be all non-native type things.
You would really need to consult with somebody who can specifically identify what it is.
Okay.
Make sure that it is not something that, I mean, there are a fair number of native vines that people don't like, greenbrier, poison ivy, for example, but they do actually provide some benefits to wildlife. So we generally don't allow complete removal, but management is possible. So it depends on what it is. So you would need to consult with somebody to find out exactly what those vines are. And then it's up to you if you want to propose some kind of a management for them.
Okay.
Right.
I will leave that alone for now.
Yeah.
This is Bob Rawls. I just have a comment on that, Mr. Brennan. There are landscapers, and then there are landscapers or people who are experienced and knowledgeable about working within resource areas, and sometimes there's two different things. So you just need to make sure that who is advising you on how to deal with the mitigation in the resource area is knowledgeable about how you do these things, and they can advise you on how to get rid of the ivy and what those lines are and so forth.
Good point.
Okay.
Okay. So with that, do we have is there a motion then to continue this to May the 12th?
Rawls moved.
Clark,
Okay.
second.
Roll call vote, continue 201 Old Harbor Road.
Okay, we need to.
Where is that coming
Wow.
from? Okay.
Where's that coming from? Is that coming from your place, Jen?
It's not me.
Okay.
Yesterday it
Sorry,
was,
it's me.
not.
So I'm trying to mute whenever it happens.
Okay. Are you phoning in from a dentist chair?
It's a bathroom reno.
Oh, God. Oh, okay. That's almost as painful. All right. Motion to continue to May 12th is seconded. Roll call vote. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Latin.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye. That's continued to May 12th. We'll see you back here then, Mr. Brennan. Mrs. Brennan, thank you for coming. Hopefully we'll wrap it up at that point and you can get going with your project.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Nicole, next one.
314 Morris Island Road, Timothy Sheehan, trustee, 692 Tremont, Unit 4 Realty Trust, map 15A, parcel H87, SC 10-3468. Continuance of an after the fact notice of intent for the proposed installation of a garden shed and garden. I did receive in my email a request to withdraw this morning, which we were or I was expecting at least. So I don't know if Thad wants to speak or if.
I would encourage him to, because I think some of us have something to say about this.
Sure. Thad Eldridge here, East Southeast. We have submitted the request to withdraw this application. We've reviewed a timeline with the agent, or I've reviewed a timeline with the agent to get a new permit into place for the remediation of the area. And we'll happily take your comments.
So wait a minute, when you say a new permit in place, is there going to be another NOI filing for the restoration?
We have to do something. The old permit is now expired.
Right.
And if he's going to go in there and restore the garden into what it was originally permitted to be, which was native landscaping, he's going to have some mechanism, some permit in place for that. So in review with the agent, we were going to shoot for sometime in August to get that filed. And so that we keep working on this in the fall.
Okay, so a new NOI to be filed in late summer or maybe August for the process of removing the garden and the shed and restoring the area to what was, I mean, you know, this is it's not, most of this site, as you can see, is within the no disturb zone. There's almost no options for doing anything. The house is in the no disturb zone. That said, I understand your client's strong desire to have a garden, an organic vegetable garden, which we normally, applaud. It's just that not only is it in the no disturb zone, but it's in the mitigation area that was permitted as mitigation for the construction of the house back in 2013. So it makes it the almost the worst location for something like that. So the NOI would be for the removal of the garden and the shed from that area, restoration back to what was mitigation. And I know I've said it before, but I'll encourage your client to take another look at some of the very flat, very sunny lawn areas that surround the house, some of which are out of the no disturb zone, but they're in the front. Others are still technically within it, like the area to the east of the driveway and the garage, but they're at least not in a no disturb zone. So, it's up to them if they want to find another spot for a garden and propose that in conjunction with the removal of the existing garden and shed. That would be fine. We would be happy to consider that.
And that is appreciated.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question, Janet.
Sure, Tom, go ahead.
I want to make sure we maintain jurisdiction. I don't want to just dismiss this outright. This was a violation. It needs to be corrected. I don't want to lose jurisdiction over that issue.
I believe the plan is that Nicole will send a letter to the homeowner confirming the withdrawal of the NOI, reminding them that they are still subject to a notice of violation that was issued on this, and that will instruct them to come up with a plan for the removal of the garden and the shed and file the NOI to permit that within 60 days. Am I getting that right, Nicole? Is that the understanding?
Yes.
That'd be excellent as far as I'm concerned.
Yep. So I will give them a date by which they have to file. Thad, did you want to have the meeting in August and file by July 27th, or can you not get a filing in until August 10th, which is the next deadline?
The way things are going, I'd prefer to push it later.
All right, so I'll put a deadline that I must receive a filing by August 10th for the August 25th meeting, bringing the property into compliance. If that does not happen, then an enforcement order will be issued. And I would strongly suggest fines at that point, given that we've given them ample time to remove this stuff.
Yep. Okay. Then is there a motion to approve the withdrawal of the NOI for 314 Morris Island Road?
Rawls move to approve the request withdrawal.
Is there a second?
No, let's be a little bit more specific on the motion. I mean, we can approve the withdrawal, but we also need to approve the agent sending out a letter setting appropriate deadlines for new filing.
Okay, is that, do you want to phrase that as a motion? That would be good.
Okay, let's see. The motion is that the commission would approve the withdrawal contingent on the agent sending a letter to the homeowner noting that they are still under a violation notice and need to file a new notice of intent in order to correct things by let's see, what date did August 10th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, that the letter would note that August 10th is the new date for the submittal of an NOI to correct the violations that have existed on the property for some time.
Okay, Is there a second to that motion?
Delvecchio, second.
Thank you. Roll call vote for the motion just expressed by Tom for 314 Morris Island Road. Commissioner Rawls,
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Latin,
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye. So that's unanimous. Withdrawn. We'll look forward to getting the NOI for the full restoration and revisiting this at the hearing on August the 25th. All right, with that, folks, we have hit the 10:30 mark, which, you know, part of my rules are nobody sits in front of a screen for more than 90 minutes. So at this point, I'm going to say everybody should take your eyes off your screen, stand up. We're going to take a 5-minute break, go walk around, get a drink. We will regather here at 10:35. Okay, we are back. So Nicole, ready to take us to the next application?
Sure, that is 68 Shell Drive, Katama Point LLC, map 14K, parcel W50, SE 10-3466. And this is a continued hearing for the proposed relocation of an existing dwelling and barn and construction of a new dwelling within lands subject to coastal storm flowage.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Bill Riley on behalf of Katama Point LLC.
Good morning, Mr. Riley.
I believe Dave Clark is with us and Teresa Sprague is with us. And since we last met, we've made some changes to the project. We had previously proposed bringing in a great deal of fill, and apparently the FEMA representative for Barnstable County told building department staff that if that amount of fill was approved, that would they would consider it sort of a violation of their community rating system guidelines, and they would remove the whatever benefit the community rating system gives to property owners in the floodplain in Chatham. So you know, we work hard, but you know, once you hit me over the head 4 or 5 times, I finally figure it out. So so we've removed a great deal of the fill. In fact, there's actually a more recent revised plan than the one that's on the screen. Dave Clark, I know you're here. Did you get the new plan over to conservation?
Not yet. We'll be getting it down there before the next meeting.
Okay, so so basically what we've done is we've left the driveway so that it is at the floodplain or a little above it, and that's so we have so we have fill between the driveway and the house. I was talking with Jay Briggs, and he said, "Do you need all that fill?" I said, "Well, no, we could always put a retaining wall there, and then somebody could fall off and hurt themselves." But and so we've even removed fill, or proposed to remove some of the proposed fill, you know, in greater amounts than is shown on the plan you have. Basically, the fill we want to bring in is for the driveway, so that emergency vehicles can have access. You know, there are other homes on Shell Drive, but no place to turn around. So this would give emergency vehicles a place to turn around. It would also provide access to the property, even in flood events, which we hope don't happen. And we're proposing to extend the berm on the Bassing Harbor, the water side of the property. Berm was built there back in the 90s. And as you might recall from the Woods Hole presentation, one area where flood waters can enter the property is at the western end of that berm. And so what we'd like to do is sort of finish that berm and bring it merge it into the higher ground there on the west side. And another place where water can enter the property is on the east side from the driveway on the neighboring property. That's the Reese property, which I'm sure you recall when they elevated the house and septic system, you know, and built the coastal dune and stuff. So, because as you know, the property is a bowl, and we'd like to keep floodwaters out, because once they go in, you know, they're liable to sit there for an extended period of time. And so that's sort of where we are. So because we've lowered the grades, you know, we're now proposing decks. Where I think patios have been before. So what I'd like is for Dave to kind of go through the changes in the plan, and then have Teresa, you know, review once again our proposed mitigation stuff. So if Dave's available.
Okay.
Good morning again, David Clark on behalf of.
Good morning, David.
The applicant, as Bill said, we've significantly reduced the amount of fill in the floodplain. We've actually reduced it some more from what you see on this plan per the conversations Bill Riley had with the building inspector. So we'll be reducing that. Well, the plan's done. We'll be filing that shortly. We retained some fill on the north side, as Bill said. The old floodplain was elevation 10. And the previous owners had a permit to fill that area and create the berm after the no-name storm. So we're asking to increase that to by 1.5 feet, so it's above the existing floodplain. And then same with the berm on the east side. There is a berm over there now, and we'd like to raise that up to elevation 11.5. As Bill said, because we got rid of all the fill, we lost the grass terrace that was proposed on the water side of the house on the north side. So the applicant wants to have outdoor living space up at the first floor level or one step down. And so we're now proposing a deck instead of the grass patio or the grass terrace. That adds about 2,000 square feet to the overall site coverage. And that's reflected on this plan in the site coverage calculations. We also moved the building back per request of the commission to get the pool and the northwest section of the house out of the no disturb zone to the coastal bank. So that's been, the whole project's been shifted south to accommodate that. And those are the fundamental changes.
Yeah, so perhaps Nicole could help us. If you took a cursor and put it where on the corner of the house on the south side, where you have the indicated 12-foot elevation over on the west side, Nicole.
I've got I'm sharing, so.
Right,
I'm not as good as Nicole. You have to, I'm on this is the 10 here.
I know, but if you see if you move it a little bit to the right, see the 12 indicator at the corner of the house there, right there. So
yeah.
That's going to be changed to a 10. And so there'll be a lot less, and it'll be tapered off. You know, as I say, actually that'll be changed to an 8. And the 10 contour is going to go a little bit further to the right, right there, exactly.
Yeah.
So there'd be a lot less fill going in this area. So anyway, that's the most dramatic reduction in fill from this current plan.
Okay.
I don't know if Dave's had an opportunity to estimate the amount of fill that would be required.
I have not yet.
Okay.
But I'll have that for the next meeting.
All right, great.
Okay. One quick thing comes to mind. Since we have a bit of time, we think that this might be useful to schedule an on-site. And as it happens, we want to do one on the property next door anyway. So it would be helpful, David, to walk the property with you to understand exactly where the grade changes are proposed and the fill.
That's fine. We have not restaked the project to reflect these changes, and but we will have that done.
Okay, that's perfect.
When do you think you can get that done, Dave?
Oh, beginning of next week.
Oh, okay, so when, the commission should just let us know when they want to go out there and we'll make arrangements.
Yep, Nicole will send around a poll to find out, to try to nail down a day and time. We have to coordinate it with doing the same thing next door at WITA, so maybe a little bit more complicated than usual to do this, but we'll get it done. Let me just ask this, how are you proposing, one thing we didn't get on this is a new narrative. So need that, but what is the proposal for making the house FEMA compliant? Are you raising the house up?
No,
The house was originally proposed to be FEMA compliant because at the time a building permit would have been issued, it would have been still in the floodplain. So the house has to be FEMA compliant. It still is. We didn't change. I don't think we changed the first floor elevation. It was higher than that was what was required. And let me just check real quick to see if we dropped it.
it says first floor elevation 14.7.
That's the current or the proposed?
Well, it's on the most recent plan. I don't know if that.
Okay.
You see that, Dave, in the over on the far west side of in that what's going to be the bedroom building over there.
Oh, yeah, that portion of the house is higher than the rest. That's the master suite. So that one is raised up a little more, but overall, the first floor is elevation 13. We're placing the top of foundation at approximately 12 and the floodplain's 11. Either this foundation will be on a slab. If it is on a slab, then it doesn't require flood vents because basically the interior of the foundation is fill and concrete. If there's a crawl space proposed, then we will have to have flood vents within 1 foot of the finished grade all around the building.
Will you resolve those questions before?
Sure.
Get the next, yeah, okay, so that what we get will show what the decisions all are in terms of how you're going to proceed with this.
Right.
Okay. And have you refiled with ZBA?
Yeah, I got beat up by the chairman last week because we wanted it at the next ZBA session, but he speculated correctly that we wouldn't be done. So we're now out, I think, the second meeting in June, for zoning, which would be probably June 20th.
Okay.
I'll check with Sarah Clark and send you an email, but there's certainly time for a couple of meetings with the commission before our zoning day.
Okay. Okay, with all of that, are there questions? I mean, we have lots of questions, but I think that most of them will get resolved once we have a revised plan, a narrative, and conduct an on-site and understand exactly what the proposal is at this point. Let me just ask if there's anything anybody else is asking for.
Yeah, Bob Rawls. I do have we're still bringing fill into the project, and whenever we are looking at a site map that shows contour lines, it doesn't tell me in a very clear way how much fill is being brought in relative to what's there now. So I was wondering whether you could, in a graphic way, indicate hatch marks, color, whatever you would like, just where areas of fill are going to be, and then an indication of how much fill. That way we could actually see it in
Sure.
a
I think the clearest way to do that. Sorry.
That's right.
I think the clearest way to do that is probably do some section lines through the building, like maybe 2 through the driveway and 1 on the north side.
Right.
So
right. Something like that. Yeah.
That would be great. Yep.
And so you mentioned that there's a couple of thousand square feet additional coverage.
Yeah,
Yes.
the proposed deck on the north side.
Yeah. So is the mitigation plan changing?
It will be, yes.
But we don't have that yet.
I believe I believe it's done. I think Teresa's on the line.
Yeah, Teresa's on, and here she is.
Yes, I'm available whenever you'd like me to present.
Oh,
Okay.
Now's a good time, Teresa.
Okay, all right, perfect. Thank you. Ken, good morning, everyone. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flex Design. I'm just going to give you a quick overview walk you up through the land management plan that we've submitted, but having the site plan up while I'm doing this, I think will be helpful. First of all, just a discussion of existing conditions. We've got much of the property is wooded, so greater than an acre with existing mature canopy, oak, pitch pine, spruce, eastern red cedar, etc. We have a lot of existing naturalized vegetation on the site, although the site does contain a significant amount of invasive vegetation, and along with some areas of undisturbed habitat, mainly on the western portion of the property. The invasive vegetation on the property includes bittersweet, border privet, shrub honeysuckle, autumn olive, porcelainberry, Japanese knotweed, barberry, multiflora rose, English ivy, vine honeysuckle, and burning bush, as well as a significant amount of native but aggressive greenbrier. As noted, there's an easement wrapping around the south and west sides of the property that allows neighbors beach access, and the path within the easement begins on the west side of the Shell driveway and at the entrance to the property, and then winds through the wooded area on the western side of the property to allow access to the beach. So our proposal is to manage invasive vegetation throughout. We have provided a number of photographs and a key on pages 4 and 5 of our land management plan. But our main goals and objectives for the mitigation and restoration portion of the project is to restore an area of about 34,700 square feet. So we'd be removing invasive vegetation and replanting with native naturalized vegetation, of course, to manage the invasive plant species to eliminate this risk of spread and to provide a mix of diverse native vegetation appropriate to site conditions. And then as well as supporting those functions to land subject to coastal storm flowage, salt marsh, coastal dune, et cetera, supporting wildlife habitat value. So we would be proposing to plant a number of native shrubs. We're looking at 411 native shrubs, 7 native trees. We are proposing to remove a number of trees for the construction of the house, as well as to allow for moving the historic portion of the existing structure from where it's currently located on the north side of the lot down to the southern portion of the lot. There are a number of trees in that area, along with a significant amount of Japanese knotweed that will need to be removed for that part of the project that I know hasn't been discussed in too much detail. We are proposing to replant a number of native trees, including eastern red cedar and white oak, in order to mitigate for the removal of the trees that are required to be removed for the new construction of the building and moving the historic structure. So we're looking at restoring an area of about 35,000 square feet with a mix of native vegetation, meadow. All lawn on the property that would be restored after construction will be a fescue clover lawn mix, so a Cape Cod lawn mix. We are proposing planting beds around the property. We have not provided a lot of detail to this point, but anything within jurisdictional areas will, of course, be native, even within the planting beds at the foundations, et cetera. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. That's just an overview. We can get certainly into much more detail if you'd like.
Thank you, Teresa. So this narrative is now updated. I wasn't sure.
That is correct. I I believe we'll be changing the grades as Bill and David just noted, but otherwise the mitigation narrative is up to date, and I don't see any changes that will be made for the grading.
Okay. So the 21 trees proposed for removal is still the right number?
Correct.
Okay. And 7 going in?
Correct.
With the shrubs. Okay.
So I guess in answer to Bob's question about whether we're increasing, I think if we're for 34,000 square feet of mitigation and restoration planting, I think we're pretty good in terms of area per coverage area. So I don't know that we have to increase it.
Well, Bob Rawls, I actually wasn't suggesting that it needed to be increased. I was just a little confused because the number of trees coming out, and the number of trees going in, and the number of shrubs going in are the same as from the last presentation. So I was wanting to make sure we halved the current proposal, but it does seem unchanged.
Right.
And I remember at the last time we talked about it, we asked whether or not more trees could be put in to replace the 21 trees coming out. So I expected in this revision to see some discussion of that, but I didn't see it.
Okay, I can discuss that with the applicant too.
Okay. Bob, anything else for now?
I think for now we're fine.
Okay. Bob Delvecchio?
I had a question about the planting of anything underneath the decks, the raised decks. Is it possible to plant any vegetation, shade-resistant plants underneath the decks at all?
Well, the decks are located on the north side of the house, and I think it will be difficult to get any significant vegetation underneath the decks. To be very honest, I would imagine that underneath the decks would probably be a gravel or pea stone to allow for infiltration of water coming through the decks. But I think the decks are going to be quite shaded on the north side of the house as is, so I think it would be really challenging to get significant vegetation planted underneath the decks.
Okay, and the other question I had, I know you're proposing to put in a fescue clover mix. Do you foresee any irrigation, permanent irrigation for that?
Within jurisdictional areas, we would only propose the temporary irrigation required to get everything established.
Okay. Okay, that's and the driveway is going to be permeable, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Tom, any questions at this point?
No, Bob took care of it all.
Thank you. Karen?
No, I think it's been covered. I'd look forward to a site visit.
Yep, thank you. Terry? Anything?
Yeah, I got a couple quick questions. One, on this screen that we're looking at right now, it looks like the red lines and the blue lines, which I'm assuming are 50 feet and 100 feet from certain points. What are those points defined as, Teresa?
Well, that's really a Dave question.
Okay, Dave.
Yeah, simply they're 50 and 100 feet from the coastal bank. The entire project is within the floodplain, an additional resource area.
All right, and then so the top of the coastal bank, and then there's another line 50 and 100 feet from the wetland or the waterway, right?
Yes, there's a dune out on the water side of the bank, and I think we show the 50 and 100 from that too. Yeah.
Okay, maybe when we have the meeting, I'm just curious. There was some mention about FEMA and how the fill would be getting in the way of some firm requirements that on the flood insurance rate maps. And my experience, when we meet, my experience is that I've been involved with a project in an inland waterway, and I know we could only do a net removal. It had to be the same with regards to fill coming in and out in a inland waterway because you couldn't fill in for the floodplain. But my understanding was on the ocean side, you could fill in to raise above the to raise the property. And I don't know if that's changed or not, but if we can talk about it at the meeting. I'm new, so I'm still trying to figure out and learn a little bit.
Madam Chair, I can explain
Go ahead, Bill.
So Terry, our zoning bylaw prohibits placement of fill in the floodplain. And because of that, FEMA gives us, I've been told, a 10% reduction for all the property owners in Chatham on their flood insurance. And that's part of a thing called the community rating system, which I don't, other than knowing that it exists, I don't know much more about it. And so the representative of FEMA told the building department staff that if the zoning board allowed the fill, which was, I wouldn't say it was 100% guaranteed, but that if they allowed it, FEMA would remove that 10% reduction. You're right. Other towns, like Harwich, for instance, there's no prohibition against fill in the floodplain. But Chatham does, and it's a wonderful benefit, I'm told. But of course, I don't have waterfront property, so I'm okay. Anyway, that's the situation.
Okay, so the fill, I understand it's a zoning issue on the fill. It's not a conservation issue on the fill.
Well, no, you can't separate them.
It's hard.
It's both conservation and zoning. So
Okay.
in other words, under the zoning bylaw, there's a section of the zoning bylaw that allows for existing roadways and driveways to be elevated. Primarily to make sure there's emergency vehicle access, even in the event of flooding. So that's what it's there for. And so, and the conversation we had with building department zoning side regarding the plan that's in front of you today is that, okay, they don't have a problem with the driveway, but why they have all that extra fill around it? So that's why we have a revised plan that again reduces the amount of fill by a significant amount. Dave will have estimated volumes for you at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trina, any questions or comments at this point?
No, a lot to take in, and I'm also still learning everything. So I'm very much looking forward to the site visit. And yeah, I think there's been a lot of questions that I initially had about the mitigation that have already been gone over. So as of right now, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Nicole?
I'm good for now until we get to the site visit and everything and see the revised plan. I just need to know if you want to be continued to May 12th, May 26th, or June 9th.
The sooner the better from our perspective.
Okay, I would say May 26th would be the first feasible date, given that we have to organize an on-site.
All right, then I will try and set something up the week of the 17th for a site visit.
Or earlier, if depending, whatever everybody's schedule, we should structure the poll to start as early as possible and see how we can get it in, if starting even late next week.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Is it possible we can continue it to the 12th in the event that we're able to get the meeting scheduled? The project's been hanging fire for a long, long time, and the applicant, understandably, is getting a little anxious for learning, how how we're going to be able to proceed. So I understand if the site visit doesn't take place before the 12th, all we would do we would send a letter in requesting a further continuance.
Okay, but given the list of things that need to be developed and submitted before the next hearing, and I'll just run through my list, and Nicole, you can double check it and see if I've got everything. The revised site plan with the section lines showing the contour changes, a narrative, some specification of the proposed fill in terms of the volume. The mitigation plan's already been done. You'll look at the number of trees being proposed for mitigation. What else?
It's basically Dave Clark stuff. So I guess I'd ask Dave if
I actually have one more, just if we
Go ahead, Bob. What is it?
And that is, I should have mentioned this before, on the mitigation plan, we have planting beds around the house, one of which extends into the NDZ, but it's just a grade area for the planting beds all around. And did we receive before, or will we receive something that tells us what goes into those, and especially in the front of the house where it's in the resource area? You know, if you've been paying attention to previous hearings where people want to have planting beds in the resource area, we want to talk about natives.
well, I think Teresa indicated that all the plants are going to be native.
Everything?
Teresa,
Yes, absolutely. We can certainly get you detail on the planting plan. We're still developing that with the property owner, but yes, all plantings will be native.
Okay, but we will have an actual
Okay, so
plan.
that's added to the list, the specification on the planting beds. Yep.
Yes, thank you.
So you would need to have that done by next May the 5th.
Right. So I guess the question's for Dave Clark.
Yeah.
As to whether, because he's got the laboring ore, as we say,
Yeah.
Whether he could get that work done by May 5th.
Yeah, I think I can get the sections done in the revised narrative. And get an answer for the flood vents. And we certainly will have it restaked before the on-site. And
restaking.
The amount of fill reduction.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's ambitious, getting all of that done and an on-site in the next 2 weeks, but in the interest of moving this along, we can give it a try, and if not, we'll push it to the 26th.
I appreciate that. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Nicole, is that okay with you? I'm signing you up to jump on the scheduling of the on-site. Like
Yeah, that's fine. It kind of narrows us down to, if we don't get materials until the 5th, we can't meet until the 6th or the 7th. So I'll
6,
start with
7,
those 2 dates
11.
for now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get you the materials as quickly as we can, Nikki.
Okay.
Okay, but you understand that we don't want to have the on-site until we have the materials.
Absolutely. And
okay.
I look forward to the on-site so I can meet Nicole.
Okay. Okay. All right, then. Do we have a motion to continue this to May the 12th? With our fingers crossed and held back.
Rawls moved.
You want me to read the comment letter?
Oh, I'm sorry. We do have a comment letter. Mary, are there any others than the one that you gave to Tom?
No, there's just the one, and it was basically what they did is they resent one that was sent to us on January 12th.
Okay, but we should reread it for the record.
It may have been read into the record at that point.
I don't remember. It's too long ago. So why don't you read it now?
All right, from Karen Salerno, Tuesday, April 27th, copy to Mary and Nicole, forwarding 68 Shell Drive. Hello, below is a comment letter I sent earlier this year when the Conservation Commission first heard input on the 68 Shell Drive project. I've updated my comments below in blue, and because I have a black and white copy, I can't tell what's blue. Based on what I've learned since that time through discussions with the homeowner and the most recent filing, regards Karen. Okay, now the copy Then she attaches, and I will read the email from January 12th, again from Karen to Mary. The comments below relate to the project of 68 Shell Drive that is on tomorrow's Conservation Commission agenda. Thank you for your consideration. I am one of 3 members of QBJKL LLC, which owns Wooda Lot 53. Our land has frontage and access on Shell Drive and abuts 68 Shell Drive. I have provided this information about the 68 Shell Drive project to our attorney and engineer for their review. Our engineer, Sean Riley from Coastal Engineering, and I will be attending the January 13th hearing. Based on the material provided for our review, we have some questions and comments. 1, there are a number of references to a, quote, Woods Hole Group report, unquote, which seems relevant to our understanding of the implications of the project on our land in Shell Drive, period. Will abutters be able to view that report, question mark? And then I think this was probably an addition. I was provided a copy of the report by the commission chair. We had no additional questions or comments after reading it. 2, it seems that a very significant amount of fill will be brought in to raise the level of the house in the center of the property, period. How many cubic yards of fill will be needed for the project, question mark? What will be the impact to the area and roadway with the trucking in of this fill, question mark? And then this appears to be a further comment. My understanding is that the amount of fill for the project has been greatly reduced, mitigating this concern, period. 3, given that the regrading of the property, it seems there would be a potential for runoff to accumulate in pond in the southwest corner that abuts our property and to impact our land. In addition, it seems that the runoff would cause erosion and damage to the unpaved Shell Drive. Then this seems to be a new comment. It seems, it seems with the new grading plan, this is no longer a concern, period. Number 4, Shell Drive will also be the access point for our future driveway, and we have concerns about any negative impact that the 68 Shell Drive project may have to our access, period. We have since clarified the location of the future driveway access to our property, so this is no longer a concern, period. 5, it is unclear from the land management plan, which shows trees and plantings very close to our property line along Shell Drive, whether the proposed plantings will limit or otherwise impact access to our land, period. This still remains a question in our mind, along with the question of the location of the ROW footpath for Shell Drive property owner beach access, period. The 68 Shell Drive homeowner and QBJKL LLC are in conceptual agreement with the need and location of the footpath and intend to collaborate on the details, subject to any guidance that the commission may provide, period. We're looking forward to learning more about the project and the commission's view of it, period. Regards, Karen.
Okay.
And then there's some other stuff, but that's just back and forth between Mary and Karen on submitting comments.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
Most of those we're addressing the previous proposal and have since become moot. Although I hope you folks heard the concerns that are still out there in terms of the agreement that needs to be, I guess, finalized on access and the footpath. I think that's pretty much it. All right.
Okay, and I'll copy this letter and send, I'll scan it since I have apparently the only version of it, and I will send it to Mary and Nicole.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, then motion to continue 68 Shell Drive to May the 12th.
Rawls moved to continue.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
May 12th.
We're moving through this, and it has been seconded. Roll call vote for continuance to May 12th. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Latin.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. If that's approved, we'll see you back. We'll see you as soon as we can get the on-site scheduled.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody.
Janet, you see who started this Madam Chair stuff? It's Bill Riley. Blame him.
Okay. I like your majesty. I don't know what's wrong with that. All right, Nicole, we are ready to go on to the next.
112 Woodcarver Knoll, Jeffrey and Tanya Capello, map 11D, parcel F8. There's no SE number yet. Construction of a plunge pool and patio and habitat restoration of the coastal bank.
Good morning, David Clark, Clark Engineering, on behalf of the Capellos, who are also on the line.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I think the project is pretty straightforward. There's an existing patio out there now, and the Capellos would like to place a plunge pool within the limits of the patio and also create another patio in front of a new door that they've just recently placed on the building, and little connector steppers in between those. The resource area is a coastal bank adjacent to Oyster Pond River or Oyster Pond. The bank is well defined. It's relatively steep, but between the bank and the river are significant salt marshes to the west of this. We show a limit of work fairly close to the activity to minimize any transgressions. The total square footage of increase within the no disturb zone is just under 550 square feet. Again, that's all within lawn area. This property was developed, I think, back in the 70s or early 80s. So there's been a maintained lawn around this house, excuse me, since the house was built. And really, there's no loss of native wildlife habitat, just lawn, and mitigation is proposed for these increases. And that would be my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Is there, so there's a plan also from a landscape plan?
Yes, I'm sorry. I think Sean Papich is also on the line to answer questions on the landscape.
Okay. Are you all seeing the landscape plan, or is that showing up? Are you still looking at the site plan? I can't quite tell.
I think we're seeing the landscape plan right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Sean, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, do you want to walk us through the landscape
Sure.
proposal?
Absolutely. So what we can talk to you about, one of the things I wanted to mention, so when David was speaking about the plunge pool, it's really more of a large spa is what it is. They come precast. It would be set at grade and proposed to be on the footprint of the existing stone terrace. There's already an existing terrace there. So our intention was to place the plunge pool within the surround of the existing terrace, just to make sure that you're clear with that. The other elements you can see on the are the terrace, which we also typically build as a permeable base terrace. So we would propose to do that in this case. Anyway, thank you for that. And then the stepping stones heading toward that in a fire pit area between the between the two terraces. Those will also be done spaced with lawn joints. So the lawn joints on those are typically about 6 to 8 inches. So there's a substantial amount of space for permeability. What we are proposing for the plantings is to remove some lawn areas, both on the kind of the upper part of the page, I should say, or toward the north, and on the west. In those areas, what we're proposing to do is replace lawn areas with some of your typical species you may suspect would be on our plan: beach plums, as well as switchgrass. Rosa virginiana is a species we use quite often, and more switchgrass. So we're still trying to do larger swaths of native plant material. The other thing, what you do find on the property is there's a little timber edge that is down on the south side. Thank you. Yeah. Perfect. You're nailing it. there's a timber edge that doesn't really do much of a job. I think at some point many, many years ago, it was placed there just to be a separator between the lawn and the plantings, the plant material that's there, the vegetation. Currently, right now, we would propose to remove that timber edge. It doesn't really do much of a retainage. But then also, there's a substantial amount of Japanese knotweed in the area where we're proposing to remove the Japanese knotweed and replace with saltgrass, plugs, as well as sweet gale. So a substantial amount of plant material going back in where we have Japanese knotweed. Dave gave the square footage on all of that, and we also did too. It's a bed of about 1,000, little over 1,000 square feet of removal of knotweed in replacement with mitigation plantings, replacement plantings. The other areas up around the Rosa Virginianas in the neighborhood of 256 square feet and then 400 square feet on the north part. So really trying to capture the edges with native plants. The bank itself, as David was discussing, the bank really isn't subject to storm flow. Essentially, it's no real storm activity. It's quite a ways off of the edge of the salt marsh, which is quite a distance away. So it's a little deceiving as to resources there. I know it's a coastal bank by name, but it doesn't feel like it acts as a coastal bank. It covers most of it. If you have any questions, speak to them.
All right, thank you very much. Let's start with Bob Del Vecchio this time. Bob, do you have any questions? Or David or Sean?
Yes, Your Majesty. I was kind of off guard because they started with me first here. There's Japanese knotweed on the left, I'm sorry, not the left, the north side of the building as well, along the where you want to put some mitigation as well. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Will that be removed as well?
Yes, we would also remove that in that area.
Could you state that on the plan as well, if you could do that?
It could be.
Okay. Also, are you planning to add any plants around the building itself?
There will ultimately be some new plantings along the building, as you can see on our plan. Were you wanting for those to be native plants as you were discussing in the previous hearing?
Yes.
There is some existing plant material right now. And I mean, we certainly could go back to something else that is more native. I'd have to kind of take a look at the extent of what we have planted right at the moment that's existing.
Yeah, especially for new plantings. It would be great if you could, keep those native.
Currently, right now, there's a fair amount of other plant material right up against the house. There is, while they're not 100% native, really, it's something you see as we would expect to see along the edges of the house. Hydrangeas, boxwoods, things of that nature are already against the wall of the house. Is that something where you would say any new plantings would just be native, correct?
Well, that's what my proposal would be, yes.
Okay.
And I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Tom?
Yeah, a couple of questions just about the where things are located. I just want to confirm or correct whatever understanding I might have. Where the plunge pool goes, is that terrace? Is that the exact same footprint as the existing terrace?
Yes, it is. The existing terrace runs all the way to those outside edges of where it is shown right now. So it's the plunge pool would sit on the inside of the extent of that existing terrace now.
Okay, and then there's a fire pit. Is that being built over what is a lawn area?
That is lawn, currently lawn.
Okay, and then there's next to it a terrace that also has a grill counter. Is that again being done on lawn over the top of existing lawn?
Correct. There's essentially that's what you would have. There is a little bit of plant material in that area. That's where some new doors are coming out of the house in that location, and that's where we would still build it with a base, permeable sub base of 2.5 inches of crushed stone per foot, 6 inches of permeable 3/4 inch stone, and then 1 inch of chip stone setting bed. So we're really building most of our terraces anymore in a permeable manner, much different than what it used to be a handful of years ago.
Okay, and then the pool equipment, is that is that a flower bed that basically it's replacing, or is that lawn, or what?
Essentially, that's a bed that's on that other side. There would be a small, probably a little bit of lawn in that area. It would come up, but it's essentially a planting bed on that side.
Okay, so it's going into what is now a planting bed.
Correct.
Okay. Boy, the curse of the small lot once again. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Karen, questions?
Besides what was just asked, I'm just curious, the bluestone terrace says with a permeable setting bed, but then you also have a bluestone landing. And is that permeable or is that impermeable?
So that would not be permeable because it's really a step is all that is. That landing is really just a large step. So that would be set on a base that's non-permeable. The stone itself would not be permeable.
Yeah, I assumed. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Terry?
No questions.
Okay. Trina?
Nothing from me.
Okay, thank you. Nicole?
I would like to see more of a vegetated buffer strip along the whole coastal bank instead of having lawn go directly to the top of the bank in most of the areas.
Okay.
Well said.
I mean, and there's a lot of new hardscape. I'm not sure if it's a flat lawn. I'm not really sure why they need stepping stones to get to the patio from the driveway, from another patio or from another walkway. And the hardscape around the fire pit seems pretty elaborate as well. And that's all I've got. I don't know if you want to comment on those, Sean.
Well, stepping stone pathway is something we usually would have a connection from somebody maybe entering onto the property from the driveway because of kind of how you come from the garage end back around to this rear yard, essentially, whatever they've got for a rear yard, which is pretty small. We would typically do a stepping stone path with lawn joints. If that's something that's frowned upon, I suppose that they could walk on grass instead, or walk right on the lawn instead. So I don't feel like the fire pit surround is elaborate. We usually like to have something where you can set a couple of chairs. We believe that with the lawn joints, it's same thing with stepping stone path, that it's a pretty low impact area because of the joints. But that's something, if it had to be decreased, it certainly could be if that's something that the commission wanted to discuss further. But we don't feel it to be that elaborate, really. It's really all at grade, very long, wide lawn joints.
Yeah, I mean, it is pervious, so I don't have a huge problem with it. I would much rather keep that and get the vegetated buffer strip along the bank.
Yeah, and when you think about that the vegetated buffer strip, what kind of widths do you think you'd want to do to try to connect all of that? I think what I'm gathering is you would kind of start on the north side and wrap it around at the top of the bank and have it extend into the existing lawn area by a handful of feet. Do you have, is a swath 3 or 4 feet wide, planted with native vegetation, something that would be a little more appealing?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything's better than just lawn straight up to the bank. So yeah, I mean,
Right.
and I know some areas it gets kind of thin and they
Mhm.
don't have because it's a small lot, they don't have a ton of lawn area. And I know, obviously they'll want to keep some, but
Mhm.
yeah, just a row or two of plantings at the top would be all right with me. It's up to the commission's final
Sure.
say.
Sure. Okay.
I would echo that. I do think when you have a bank that is coming up from a salt marsh, you need to be very careful about protecting that, and that's the job of a vegetative buffer strip. I recognize that this is a very constrained lot, but any 4 foot wide, say, strip that would help the bank and help the marsh and keep anything from getting down there would be very helpful.
Okay.
I agree with Nicole that as long as you have the grass joints at 4 to 6 inches on the fire pit terrace, that's probably okay. I think maybe, I understand the use of stepping stones. I think there's walking in the grass is a double-edged sword. I just think my take is that it looks a little excessive. Stepping stones are generally whatever a stride length apart, and not what amounts to looking like a walkway, which becomes much more impervious. But if you could take a look at that, that would be helpful too.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions or comments from anybody?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're the top of the list.
It's all right.
I
I was wondering if I had to say Your Highness to get to, anyway.
Well, yeah.
So I echo the previous comments about the VBS. It's pretty thin. When I was out there, the staking, it was green stake showing the area, the line of the mitigation. I couldn't tell whether that, when I'm looking at this map, whether those stakes represented the inside edge of the mitigation area or just sort of the middle of the mitigation area, because they don't seem to join up to me. So I do think it should be wider. I mean, I assume that everything behind the mitigation, the VBS is a sea of invasives. So as we've seen many times, those invasives will encroach, take over. And so we have, at the end of the day, traditional hardscape with basically compromised mitigation. So it's a perennial problem. So making it thicker and wider will help preserve it, I guess, to some degree longer. I also would encourage there be a demarcation between the mitigation and the lawn so that in the future landowners or whatever, they understand that that's a special area. That's it.
Okay. All right, so what I have here, and everyone feel free to add to this list, that you're going to add the areas of knotweed and where they exist and that they're being removed from the plan. You'll add a note that all new plantings going in will be native. You'll add a vegetated buffer strip along the top of the bank. You'll consider removing or separating the stepping stones to make that less impactful. Anything else that I don't have here?
That's all I had.
All right, then we could continue. Yes, go ahead, Bob.
Bob mentioned the demarcation with something along the mitigation area, between the lawn and the mitigation area.
You can add that to the plan too, which is helpful when we get to writing an order of conditions. If it's noted on the plan, it increases the likelihood of it actually being effective.
So talk to me a little bit about that in terms of the demarcation of lawn. You're talking about physically in the field, correct?
Yeah, a row of stones sometimes works. Okay. Anything that will keep somebody from running a mower over the lawn edge and into the mitigation area. A low 10-inch high fence works, a little split rail or some stones, or just something that makes it visually keys in that this is not an area that is part of the lawn.
Landscapers keep out.
Yeah, you could just put that sign, right.
I understood.
All right, so we can continue it to May 12th if you can have those changes to us by a week from today, May the 5th.
Okay. I think that makes sense. Is there any other comments about any of the other hardscape elements that we have? I think you gave me a fair amount to look at.
All right, and is there a motion to continue, what is this, 112 Woodcarver Knoll to May the 12th?
Rawls moved to continue to May 12th.
Second?
All right, roll call vote. Commissioner Rawls,
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Clark.
I hate sites like this, but I'm an aye.
I know. Latin,
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That's unanimous. We will see you back here on May the 12th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
All right.
next we have 0 Witta Road, QBJKL LLC, map 14K, parcel 15-W53, SE 10-3490, construction of a pool house, boathouse, beach access staircase, and associated site improvements.
Good morning, this is Taria McGrail with Coastal Engineering, and also on the line is Jen Crawford from Crawford Land Management.
Okay.
So I'd like to present to you a quick summary of the activities that we're proposing on this project site. So as you're aware, this property is bounded to the north and east by 68 Shell Drive and then also Bassing Harbor. The property is currently undeveloped with a few existing footpaths, one of which is located right along the top of Coastal Bank that has a slope that fronts on Bassing Harbor. In the area of this path, there is an existing bench with cannons. The bench looks like it's been there for quite a long time. The resource areas on this property include coastal beach, dune, coastal bank, and then flood zones, VE elevation 13, which is right along the shorefront with Bassing Harbor, and then an AE elevation 11, which is indicated on the site plan by a heavy dash black line. The landwardmost resource area is Coastal Bank. The coastal banks are shown as defined by 92-1. They're located along the northern end of the property, where that slope that I mentioned that fronts on Bassing Harbor. And then there's also a bank that's located on the west side of the property. The 50 and 100 foot buffers to these banks are shown in red and blue on the site plans and on the existing conditions plan that you're showing right now. Also, a portion of this property is located within 100 feet of the 9-foot contour and is located in the Pleasant Bay ACEC. So proposed work on this property includes development of a single-family dwelling with accessory pool and pool house and also a boathouse. The single-family dwelling is completely outside of the 100-foot buffer to the coastal bank. A portion of the pool area does fall into the 50 to 100 foot buffer. And then also to the north of the pool, we're proposing a boathouse that falls within the 50 to 100 foot buffer. And then just to the north of the boathouse, we are proposing a set of beach access stairs. And as you can see, right to the south of that stair is the existing footpath that is on the site today. And also that bench with cannons that I previously mentioned that has been on the site for quite some time. So overall, the increase in new coverage within the 50 to 100 foot buffer is about 1,800 square feet. To mitigate for this new coverage, we're proposing just about 4,300 square feet of mitigation plant improvements. This mitigation area is proposed just to the west of the pool area and is shown in that crosshatch shading. Jen Crawford is on the line to talk about it in more detail, but I'll also point out before she joins in that this mitigation rate is at about a 2.2 to 1 mitigation rate. And in addition to that mitigation, we are proposing to restore with native plants about 15,000 square feet. land area. So I guess that's a brief summary of the site improvements from an engineering perspective. Jen, do you want to take over with description of your work?
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. So for the record, Jen Crawford with Crawford Land Management. So we work closely with Tarya to kind of develop the restoration plan, most of it being what would be within the limit of work required for construction of the house and the associated pool area and landscape around the house. So as Tarya said, the entire house is outside of jurisdiction. It's really just the pool area that falls within that outer buffer zone to the coastal bank. So as she already stated, the mitigation area is to the left of the pool from what you see on your plan view. And then all the other planting that you see is really restoration work to heal back within that limit of construction work that would be required for the project. All in all, from an existing conditions standpoint, the entire lot is a fairly easy plant community to understand. As I wrote a little bit about in my narrative, it's a typical pitch pine oak woodland. The majority of this site happens to be more pitch pine than the deciduous oak. Pitch pine are a relatively short-lived species. They're an early successional species, and with the age of the trees and the even age stand that we see out there, it's relatively safe to assume that this is a parcel of land that from an ecological standpoint and a plant community standpoint is going to start seeing some changes coming up in a relatively quick timeline here. As things are reaching the end of their lifespan, we're going to see the opportunity for later successional species to be coming into this parcel. So in having that knowledge in an effort with our restoration work, what we have chosen to do is, rather than plant things that are already there, because there really is no understory stratification of vegetation layers. There's very little ground cover. So in an effort to, I guess, provide this parcel of land with an opportunity to really diversify itself as it naturally succeeds in the future, we've chosen to put later successional species and to introduce them to these restored areas, as well as help with the layer stratification that really the parcel is currently lacking. So the restoration work and mitigation work will introduce around 74 new canopy and understory species throughout the property, which I think is a huge benefit, because with the exception of really one white oak, all of those species are going to be native and newly introduced to this particular parcel, which is a big seed source. There's also a variety of woodland understory species, shrubland species, grasses, sedges, forbs, and really some great ground covers. So with that being said, that portion is actually fairly straightforward. I think I should note for you that I took a look at some of my plant counts on my plant schedule, and a few of them are wrong, but they're wrong in a good way. There's actually a few more plants shown on the plan that what is listed in my plant schedule, so I will make sure to update that for you, and I can only attribute that to my status of being 8 months pregnant and my head not all being there. So anyway, so with that, I mean, the application is fairly straightforward, and Tari and I both have an understanding that this project would be very helpful for the commissioners to see on site. So we would love to be able to show it to you so you can see exactly what we're describing and talking about.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Thank you both. Yes, before I open up to questions, two things. One, I completely agree. When we're looking at undeveloped land and trying to visualize what it's going to go there, we really need to be on the site and walk through, and you can show us. So as it happens, as you heard earlier, we're going to be scheduling an on-site for the adjacent property, so it makes sense. So be on the lookout. You'll be getting an email from Nicole very soon, because we need to try to get this done quickly. So everybody should respond with their available dates and times so we can get something set up. The other thing I just want to note before I open it up to questions from the commissioners, you guys may know, I don't know if you do, that this property came before the commission 3 years ago in 2019 for a similar development plan. And what struck me right away, this is really for Tarya, when I looked at the delineations, what we looked at and had as an understanding in 2019 is quite different in terms of the delineations at the top of the bank. And so I can just show you what, this was 2019. We saw a second series of bank tops also delineate in accordance with 91-2 that ran along here and here, which may or may not impact where you are siting your house. So I would just ask you to have a, if you have access to this, I can send it to you. If not, to take another look and determine whether or not there are any adjustments or revisions. So this would show I think this would be the 50 and this would be the 100, which, I can't tell, may or may not be where the house is proposed to be.
Right.
Yeah,
So
hard to, but it might impact, it might not, but I would just ask you to take a look and because it's not consistent with what our understanding had been about where the resource areas are on this property.
Right. So I could actually address that right now.
Okay.
If you can zoom in to that area that you had in question, in particular, closer to where we're showing the single family dwelling, that slope there. I guess it's kind of light and gray in the background. Straddling the property line there, you can see see those dashed gray lines with some numbers on them. They say 1 foot
here.
vertical equals like 10.8 feet horizontal, 11 feet. So those are transects that we took through the area. We did quite a bit of detailed topography in that area to take a look at that, if whether or not that is a bank. When you're on the site, in my opinion, you look at the area and it's not a slope that's providing a vertical separation, to that adjacent coastal beach, and providing the function of a coastal bank like you would see on the coastal bank that's to the north on the property. And in addition to that, the slope in the area is very slight, and we looked at it and did topography around that flood zone in accordance with 92-1, and we found that as indicated by those transects, which are less than 40 feet apart, that the slope does not meet the definition of the 1 foot in 10. It's less steep than 1 foot in 10, and therefore doesn't trigger the coastal bank based on our transects that we found in the topography that we did in that area. So that's what's represented on the plan, and I'd be happy to look at it on the site with you.
Okay, that would be helpful too, but you're right. I had not noticed those light gray lines.
Yeah, so there's I think there's 6 of them in there, starting at Shell Drive and heading to the left on the plan.
I'm starting to see it now. Okay, I can take a look at that. All right, thank you.
And then also to the north, I know you had indicated that other area, we did a similar practice, and you'll see some of those in there.
Okay. Yeah, I see it now. There it is. Okay. All right, let me open questions with Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, I had a question about the staircase, actually. The properties in Pleasant Bay ACEC, and for that reason, I was, since we were aware but haven't moved forward yet on the requirement that the local jurisdictions in Pleasant Bay have standards according to state law that are more strict than what we otherwise would apply. And I noticed on the staircase that there was a reference to a FEMA guidance document, and I thought since this is in an ACEC that perhaps the more appropriate guidance is Pleasant Bay Resource Management Alliance guidelines for private walkways and stairs, particularly on page 6, paragraph 6A1. So it may not make a difference. I don't know, because I rely on our experts to help us with that, but it strikes me that that would probably be a more appropriate guidance for the stair walkway, whatever you want to call it, rather than the FEMA guidance.
So one thing I can tell you about the location, where we chose to put the location of it is, and if we walk down onto the existing footpath that's on the site, you'll be able to see for yourself. But we did locate those that stair access in an area that basically will not really disturb any existing vegetation. There will be no tree removal to do in order to put that staircase in. The vegetation at the bottom of the bank, this is the sparsest area for vegetation at the bottom of the bank. So we did try very hard to choose a location that would really, honestly, there'll be more vegetation there after we put the staircase in than what's there now. But you'll be able to see that when you go on site. So it doesn't exactly address what you've brought up, but I just wanted to mention that we did take a look at that area fairly carefully and tried to locate that as sensitively as possible.
I'm sure you did. My comments were not meant to question the location, but the construction and the design and construction of the walkway and stairs.
Right.
Just what would be the appropriate reference materials for this, how you go about designing it and so on. And I know Pleasant Bay goes the extra mile when it comes to setting out their guidelines. So I would ask you to take a look at that. And if you'd like me to send you a copy, I'd be happy to do so, although I can't imagine that you don't have that at your fingertips.
That one's going to fall into Taria's court.
Yeah, and we'll certainly take a look and address that. Thank you for your comment.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Anything else, Tom?
No, that was the only thing that jumped out at me.
Okay, thank you. Karen, any questions?
Well, building on what Tom just asked, is there a reason that you're putting that stairway there and not using the existing path that's a little further over that already is sort of trampled down and obviously has been used to get to the beach?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, we're proposing the boathouse up in the area in the 5,100-foot buffer there. The purpose of the boathouse is going to be to hold paddle boards and kayaks. What we're trying to propose is a direct access location that's used by the owner to be able to, bring the paddle boards down towards the water. Also, what becomes problematic with putting beach stairs in a shared location is that there becomes liability concerns with long-term maintenance and liability of, that was part of the design decision for placing the stairs where they're proposed.
Okay, I also, I'm not real excited about the boathouse. First of all, calling it a boathouse when it's where it is not really correct. It's a storage shed, I think. And I am concerned about it being in the 5,100 area. Is there any way you can put that someplace else?
Any place we go with that goes closer to all the resource areas located towards the water.
Right.
We did evaluate, the property in the resource area buffers and their delineations, but ultimately thought that this was the best location, that this was the best location for that use.
Okay, I don't know. Also, I was concerned when I was looking, and maybe it'll become more evident if we do a site visit, but around where the pool is, it seemed like there were an awful lot of trees being removed. And I know you talked about the longevity of some of these trees and that they're nearing the end of their time, I guess. But I was concerned over the number of trees that were being removed that are beyond the pool and don't seem to be that they're necessary to remove.
I think, Tari, it would be better to address that piece of it from basically the construction standpoint, with the work that needs to be done.
Yeah, so what we're trying to do is create, be realistic about the amount of space that's going to be needed to construct that pool area, and some of the grading that's required, just to the left-hand side of the pool there. So what we've done is we've tried to site the limit of work as close to the pool area as we felt was reasonable with the work that's proposed. It's certainly something that when we're on site, we can take a look again and see if it's possible to maybe think about construction methods to see if maybe we can pull that limit of work in maybe another 5 feet or so, to see if there's some trees that we can save. And then also during construction, what we can do is we can stake out that limit of work and see if it can be adjusted to save any trees that might be, within 5 or 10 feet of that line.
I think anything that can save some trees is preferable. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Terry, any questions or comments from you?
Let me just make sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. No, not right now. I'll probably have something on the site visit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trina, anything?
No, nothing additional from me. Definitely looking forward to the site visit as well.
Yep. Okay, I think all of mine have been hit as well. Nicole?
Same. I think everything that I've thought of has been addressed.
Okay. Do you need to go to zoning for this?
Your Highness.
I'm sorry, I did it again. Now I've missed both of you because I started with Tom. Go ahead, Bob, sorry.
At some point, I think as with the previous submission a few years ago, maybe unless I missed it, I don't see an inventory of any kind indicating that trees that are coming out within the resource area.
Mm-hmm.
So, size and species, for example, it just gives us a better idea and ideally why they're coming out. In other words, they're within the limit of work or diseased or whatever. We just need to have a very good handle on which trees are coming out in our jurisdiction and why.
Yep. Actually, locating them on the plan can answer a lot of those questions because we can see right away what.
I think the easiest thing for us to do, since the limit of work is staked in the field, and the 100-foot buffer from the coastal bank is staked in the field, would be for me to, I'm more than happy to tie flags around them so you can easily identify them when they're there. It seems, no offense, but it seems to be a waste of time to survey trees that may ultimately be removed. Yep. Because they're within a limit of work, but I'm more than happy to do an inventory of those and provide you with a list of species and sizes that would correspond with what's flagged in the field, if that would be most helpful to you.
An inventory would certainly help. There's right now there are blue ribbons, blue flags on.
Those are old and they are not accurate. So I will make sure that those are all updated before. Because I think that one of the big differences is with the previous filing. I think one thing that they were trying to do was to remove, basically they had, I think, tree removals all the way down to the property line to try to gain views. And we have not taken that same approach to this project. And so the flagging that is out there, like I said, is old and inaccurate. I'll make sure that it gets updated before the site visit so that what you see is an accurate representation for what would be within the 100-foot buffer zone to the coastal bank.
Thank you. Perfect. That's very helpful. Anything else, Bob?
Nope, that's it.
Bob Del Vecchio?
I just had a question on the north side of the proposed dwelling. the house, between the limit of work and the property line, none of those trees are proposed to be removed?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah, our tree removal is solely associated with the limit of work for construction.
okay. Other than that, I have no other questions.
And
Thank
your
you.
access is from the southern side from,
Correct.
okay. Okay. Does anybody have anything else? All right, well, you heard the drill before. We'll get this arranged. Do you want to try to, do you want to go with May 26th or are you under some sort of, is there a reason that you want to try to get it done? Well, we're going to have to do the on-site in the next 4 or 5 days. So are you able to do the revisions that we've talked about by next Wednesday to hit the 12th?
It sounds like what you're looking for from me, at least, is more about the tree inventory and then to have those corresponding trees within that 100-foot buffer zone flagged on site for review when we go out there. So that work, I can have that work done relatively quickly.
Okay.
If there's anything else you need from me, please tell me, and I'm sure I can accommodate. Doesn't seem like it's much at this point, at least.
It's just the updated plan schedule that you said, the number of the inventory of removal trees and the correct flagging.
Yep.
Nicole, is there anything else that I'm missing there?
Nope, that's all I had.
Okay. How
And
is
then
our
what about
schedule? Do we know anything about what we've got on tap for the 12th? Am I overloading to keep moving things to that?
68 Shell, Wood Carver, 201 Old Harbor.
Oh, it's going to be like today all over again, Groundhog Day.
80 Ridgevale, the 2 Woodland Ways, which while I'm thinking about it, we have 263 Woodland Way at 10 a.m. tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
And
okay.
83 Seagull and all those other properties was slated to be on, but I'll talk about that at the work session.
Okay.
And then looks like 1711 Queen Anne.
Okay. Well, a lot of these are just revisions, so shouldn't take too long. It'll be a longer hearing if we have all these, but hopefully things like this will just be quick.
Well, and we'll have a couple new ones. I'm not sure what came in yesterday for our filing deadline yet, but I don't think it was much.
Okay, that's good news. All right then, do we have then a motion to continue this to May 12th?
Rawls moved to continue to May 12th.
Second.
All right, roll call vote to continue 0 Widow Road to May the 12th. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Latin.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye, that's unanimous. We will be back May 12th after our on-site.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. That was
See you
helpful.
soon.
All right, see you soon. Right, do it again. This goes, it's so much fun. Okay, take care. All right, Nicole, that's the end of the NOIs. Now we have COCs.
Yep, we have 2 certificates of compliance. The first one is 620 Orleans Road, Preston Ford, map 12J, parcel 10, SC 10-1676, Salt Marsh Restoration. This permit's like 20 years old, and there was no pictures of the damaged salt marsh, so I can't really speak to, how much better it is than when it was damaged. But the salt marsh did seem to look fine to me. My only issue is that they're storing boats in the resource area, small ones. So those just need to come out and be stored in the plenty of lawn area that's attached to that property. So I would recommend a certificate of compliance.
Is that something, is the direction to remove the boats from the resource area something that gets put into that, or is it a separate letter?
I can either do a cover letter or there is the spot for ongoing conditions. I don't think it's a condition from the original order, but I don't see a problem of, just throwing it on the certificate of compliance that they aren't allowed to store them there.
Right.
Because it would be, it's part of our current regulations and they need to be up to date with our current regulations, so.
Yep, agreed. Okay. Any questions on that?
So would that be that's not a type, oh, never mind. I'm sorry, I withdraw my question.
Okay. You want to make a motion to approve the certificate of compliance?
Sure, I move to approve the certificate of compliance.
Clark, second.
Roll call vote to approve COC for 620 Orleans Road. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Latin.
Aye.
I vote aye. That's approved unanimously.
Sullivan does too.
Oh my God, I skipped
No
you.
problem.
I am so sorry. I'm having a hard time with my cheat sheet here today.
There are too many of us now.
Well, it's a lot hard. It's a lot more to keep track of than it used to be. I used to be able to do it with my eyes closed. Now I'm missing folks. Blanket apologies all around. All right, so that's approved. Next one.
0 Nantucket Drive, I think. David Rinke, Bucks Creek Association, map 6B, parcel 2, SE 10-2259. And this was for an elevated walkway. The walkway itself meets the conditions. Again, there's, if you walk across the whole walkway down to the beach, there are some like kayaks and association member boats being stored there. So that's the same thing. I would put a condition that they have to move those to a lawn or upland area. So I did notice on either side of the two ends of the walkway, there was some marsh that had died off, and I had originally thought it was from shading or something, but I was informed that not too long ago, Cali had issued an enforcement order that the people who were installing the walkway were like stepping into the marsh, and they ended up killing it. And so at first I was going to say we shouldn't approve this until it gets restored. But then Mark Burgess let me know that after the enforcement order, they'd filed a separate NOI to do the restoration, and that is still open. It's good until 2023. So they do have time to continue getting the marsh restored. So since the actual walkway meets the plans and the order of conditions, then I would say go ahead and approve it. And then we'll follow up with the marsh restoration when they come for their COC in a couple of years.
Okay, everybody get that, or do you have questions about that? It's a little complicated. It's an order of conditions followed by an enforcement, followed by another order of conditions. We're only closing out the first one. All right, is there a motion to approve the certificate of compliance?
Move to approve the certificate of compliance.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote for the certificate of compliance. Commissioner Rawls?
Aye.
Delvecchio?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Latin?
Aye.
Sullivan?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. That is unanimously approved. That's the end.
Great job. Thank you.
All right. We will see everyone tomorrow morning at 10 on Woodland Way. Do be on the lookout for the email that will come from Nicole to set up the two on-sites. Just because there's a time crunch of getting that done, a quick response is appreciated, so she can get that set and get everybody notified. Anything else that we need to talk about or do? Then we need a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Clark, second.
All right, roll call vote to get out of here. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Latin.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye. And Trina, if you could vote, I know you would vote aye, and so that's unanimous.
Aye, how about that? I'll put it in there.
So, good job, everybody. Got it done in good time today. Not bad.